Good evening, and welcome back to open session. Today is Tuesday, February 6th. This is the meeting of the Redondo Beach City Council. We're back from closed session. May I get a roll call, please?
Councilmember Narenheim. Councilmember Kolujevic.
Here.
Councilmember Obaji.
Here.
Councilmember Barrett.
Here.
Mayor Brand is absent. Mayor Pro Tem Lowenstein.
Here, thank you. Do we have any announcements from closed session? Okay, then we're going to adjourn to a regular meeting of the Redondo Beach City Council. Can I get a roll call, please, for that?
Councilmember Narenheim. Councilmember Kolujevic.
Here.
Councilmember Obaji.
Here.
Councilmember Barrett.
Here.
Mayor Brand is absent, and Mayor Pro Tem Lowenstein.
Here, if you would stand, please, for the Pledge of Allegiance, and then we'll stand for a minute of silence, a moment of silence. Please put your hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. Okay, first we're going to start off with, we have no presentations or proclamations, so we're going to start off with council members' announcements. Councilmember Kolujevic.
Yes, I attended the Cal Cities Mayor and Council Member Training in Monterey with Cal Cities, the League of California Cities. Great presentations talking about Brown Act, public record requests, social media, even land use and effective governance. So I was encouraged to see a lot of tenured mayors and council members there, as well as new members. So many things are changing, so it's really great to attend that, stay up to date. I wanted to do a big thank you to our city manager, Mr. Wazanski, for being my special guest at our district meeting. I had lots of residents contact me and let me know that they learned so much and they appreciated the information. So thank you so much. And thank you to Pat and Linda Ost for opening up the Morale House for us to have that meeting there. I am working on my February meeting with Public Works and our traffic engineering team, yet to be determined for the date and the time, or the date and the location. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Obaji.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. First, I got to say thank you to Councilmember Narenheim for speaking on behalf of the city of Redondo Beach at the South Bay Cities Council of Governments regarding the Metro Sea Line extension, and Councilmember Mayor Pro Tem Lowenstein for also joining and speaking there, as well as advocacy from Councilmember Kolujevic outside the meeting. But that was an important meeting, and the COG decided not to support the right-of-way, but instead support just the extension of the line without taking a position on alignment. Second, I want to thank our Department of Public Works, Mike Klein, the supervisors, Teamsters, all the people there who have during this storm made sure that water continues to flow where it needs to go and away from people's homes and not puddle up, fix potholes when they come about. Thank you so much. They've been working around the clock, specifically in District 4. There was a corner where water backed up and guys men and women stayed there throughout the night, their trucks pumping water throughout the middle of the night to make sure that homes stayed dry and didn't get infiltrated with water. Finally, I attended Independent Cities Association conference this last weekend on Saturday with Councilmember Narenheim and Mayor Pro Tem Lowenstein. It was great to see them asking so many questions. We realize how active our council members are when you go to one of those conferences, and every time somebody raises their hand, it's like, okay, Redondo Beach, Redondo Beach, Redondo Beach. But we did hear from some folks, including Dr. Drew Pinsky, about fentanyl and how dangerous that is. And hopefully we'll hear more education on fentanyl. But folks, the one piece of advice I got from it that I pass on to you is tell your kids, do not go for any pills that are from anything other than a bottle from the store or prescribed to them, because the fentanyl is getting stuffed in things that look like regular pills that you and I would take and look super, legit. And then they have a lethal dose in them. And that's the most dangerous thing facing our kids right now. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. I understand that the YouTube feed is not working and no sound on the TV feed as well. So thank you, Councilmember Obaji, for that description. Councilmember Barrett?
I have none this week.
Okay. I have several announcements. One is, as Councilmember Obaji mentioned, I joined him and Councilmember Nierenheim in Santa Barbara. I think the fentanyl panel, like you said, really hit a home run. I think it was the most engaging, and I really learned a lot from that. And it's a serious epidemic that we all know about, but it's even more serious. I think one of the things I learned about is everybody thinks, well, if you take a pill, and you can test it that there's no fentanyl in there, all it needs is 2 grains of sand size to be an overdose. And so nothing is safe. And what Dr. Drew said, which was really interesting, he basically said that we are going about the wrong way of tackling the unhoused homeless problem. Basically, we're sending social workers out instead of psychiatrists. And we basically have hospitals without roof, without walls, and we're not treating the patients. And that really hit home. So I hope the state and everybody else gets their act together. We do a terrific job in this city with our homeless court, our pallet shelters, our wraparound services, Lilo, Murrah, everybody. But it's a real problem, and hoping that any type of help from the legal community with the lawsuit that's coming up will be in our favor so that we can take care of the folks that really need the help the most. I'd also like to second the praise for the Public Works Department, Mike, Ted, everybody in your team. We escaped the worst part of the flooding and the rains, but it was still a good 4.5 inches of rain, I think, over the last couple of days, which is more than we usually get, about a third of what we get a year. So thank you all. I know that was a lot of extra hours and work. And then finally, the next District 2 community meeting will be Monday, February the 26th, 6 to 7:30 p.m. on Zoom. You can register at redondo.org under District 2 council member. And my special guest will be Alan Sanford from Beach Life and California Surf Club, and Jeff Jones, also from California Surf Club and Quality Seafood. And we're going to be learning all about their plans for the California Surf Club, which is down near Ruby's, where On the Rocks also used to be, and the Beach Life Festival, which is coming up in early May. So really exciting. And I'm glad to have them on board for that community meeting. Again, Monday, February the 26th on Zoom. So I need an approval of the order agenda. We are going to pull 2 items from the agenda this evening. One is H12 and also P1, both of which are going to be pulled and tabled for future meeting.
Next week, yeah.
Okay, so can I get a motion then for approval of the agenda, minus those items?
Motion to approve the order of agenda minus those 2 items.
Okay, is there a second? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we are now on to agency recess, which is a regular meeting of the Community Finance Authority. May we get a roll call, please?
Councilmember Nierenheim. Councilmember Kolodziejewicz. Here. Councilmember Obaji.
Here.
Councilmember Barrett.
Here.
Mayor Brand is absent. Mayor Pro Tem Lowenstein.
Here, I need to actually pull up the agenda real quickly.
And while you're doing that, Mayor Pro Tem, we have confirmation that both YouTube and sound is working.
Okay, is working. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, can I get approval of the order of agenda for this meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, anybody opposed? Okay, do we have any blue folder items for the Community Financing Authority meeting?
There are no blue folder items for the Financing Authority.
Okay, and we're now under the consent calendar. Consent calendar are items we routinely pass review and pass, unless anybody would like to pull those items and discuss those items. So would anybody like to pull any of the items on the consent calendar on the council? Councilmember Kaljurevich,
No, thank you.
Councilmember Obaji,
Nope.
Councilmember Barron. No. Okay, anybody in the audience would like to pull any of the items from the consent calendar of the Community Finance Authority?
And Mayor Pro Tem, just for the record, there is no one on Zoom wishing to speak on this item either.
Or any comments?
Okay, thank you so much. Can I get a motion then?
Motion to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you very much. Motion passes 4-0. Public participation on non-agenda items. These are your chance to speak to any item that is not on the agenda of the Community Financing Authority. You'll have 3 minutes to address the council. You can discuss anything that's not on the agenda and not on the agenda for tonight's meeting as well too, which is the regular meeting of the City Council. Would anybody like to approach the podium and speak on public participation? Sure. Okay. All right, nobody looks like we did that. We have no public hearings. And so do we have any referrals to staff for the Community Finance Authority?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we are adjourned. May I get a roll call, please, back into the open session of the Redondo Beach City Council?
Councilmember Narenheim, Councilmember Kalujerovich,
Here.
Councilmember Obaji,
Here.
Councilmember Barrett, Mayor Brand is absent, Mayor Pro Tem Lowenstein.
Here.
And a quorum.
Do we have any blue folder items for tonight's meeting?
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem, we have one item, and that is J1, public participation of non-agenda items, public communications.
Okay.
That's it.
Can I get a motion for receive and file, please?
Motion to receive and file.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we're now into the consent calendar item. Again, these are items that we routinely pass, we review and pass, unless anybody would like to pull the item and discuss. So I'll go through the council first, and then I'll turn to the public to see if they'd like to pull any items. Councilmember Kaljurevich,
No, thank you.
Councilmember Obaji,
No, thank you.
okay, Councilmember Barrett. Okay, anybody in the audience like to pull any of the items on the consent calendar for tonight's meeting? Okay, I will pull item H7. So is there anybody that would like to make a motion for all items except for items H7 and H12 on the consent calendar? Can I get a
So
motion?
moved.
Motion. Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, item H7, Mr. Saman, Mr. Klein.
I have,
Did you have somebody?
yes,
Okay.
some resolutions.
Got it, thank you.
That includes H9, adopt by title only, resolution number CC 2402-005, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Redondo Beach, California, authorizing submittal of the funding request certification to the Department of Resources, Recycling and Recovery, CalRecycle, for payment programs and related authorizations. And item H13, adopt by title only, resolution number CC 2402-006, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Redondo Beach, California, amending the official book of class specifications to update the position of Information Systems Specialist. I conclude the titles.
We have no e-comments.
No comments?
And
And no Zoom.
No Zoom. Okay, thank you. Okay, item H7, Mr. Saman, Mr. Klein. This is the item related to roofing of the police substation on the pier. So I reviewed the quote. It's very high, but I'd like for you to tell us a bit more about what's included in the quote, what items we might not see that are part of this bid. And also, I have a question about the length of the warranty for this. I believe it was a 5-year for labor, if I'm not mistaken, and beyond that, I don't know. So I'd be curious to know if you would, please.
Absolutely, and I'll start this off and then hand it over to our Deputy Director, Mike Klein. Mayor Pro Tem, Council Members, Ted Saman, Public Works Director. This item before you tonight is to actually replace the roof on our police substation down in the pier. It is something that we received multiple quotes for, and as you can see from the AR, the quotes are very close. So that's a good indicator for us that we're not being gouged by any particular contractor in that manner. In the agreement itself, we actually have a bigger breakdown of each of the components of the work itself. The roof replacement and recovering is about $56,000. The cap covers, flashing, as my client will discuss more, that's almost $19,000 worth of work. The scaffolding, because of the location itself, they do need scaffolding. It's not something that they can just access by roofs. The fact that we are a government entity and we have to work under
Competitive.
our labor compliance and, I'm sorry? Yeah, prevailing wage. You know, the prices are generally higher than you would as a homeowner actually trying to get roof replaced. And the fact that it's a job that is, you know, that we want to make sure we have a guarantee on. There are bonds that are required to make sure that the contractor completes the work and gets all the material that's there. On the warranties, I'll speak briefly and then I'll let Mike get into the details. The contractor themselves have provided a 5-year warranty on labor work that they have done. That's above and beyond what you and I would see as a homeowner when we're trying to get a roof that says a 15 or a 20-year warranty. The roof components themselves, the materials, do have manufacturer's warranties that are 20 and 10-year respectively, and that's for the underlayment and then the top material itself. And then Mike will also explain on the top material why it's even more expensive than your normal type of roof material. So Mike, I'll let you go through the details.
Mayor and Council, one of the issues that came up on this that was kind of a high price item was the cap covers. On the tail ends, if you're out at the police substation, you'll see the rafter details. Those have been rotting over years. And what we did to clean them up and to make them more presentable is to clip them, get to the best material that we possibly can. And then what we're going to do is that we're putting on a galvanized material cap on the end of it. We'll also paint those, make sure that they look correct. Each one of those has to be fitted. There's 40 of these that have to be done. Runs about $450 to manufacture them. They have to be each manufactured in a different, because some of them are a little bit different in size. So we're going to be doing each one of those. They have to be installed and then we'll be painting those. So that was a high cost on that. That ends up being about $475 per piece.
Okay.
But that also includes going out, measuring them, manufacturing them, and then installing them. So that was a high price, but it was something that we decided to do to try to clean up the ends and give it a little bit better architectural detail. The scaffolding is very, very important. Number one, for the safety of the bike riders down below and the bike path. When we will be getting into this, we always have traffic underneath us, and we have to be making sure that that's a safe environment. Also for the workers up on top of the roof.
Okay.
The roof itself is 2 different sections of roof. One is a composite style. Basically looks like a cedar shake, which matches all the other properties down there.
Yeah.
And that is a little bit more expensive and it's not just 3 tile or 3 shingles, it's 1 tile per, and they have to hand install those. So it's not something that's gunned on. They will be using pneumatic nailers and things like that, but it's a little bit more expensive. The composite sheeting underneath, the underlayment, we're expecting to have, there's been dry rot, there's been leaking through the roof. That was a portion, we weren't planning on doing this at first as is part of the remodel, but we're going to have to do this. And then there is the parapet area, which holds the air conditioning. We have antennas up there for police communications and also for LA County Beaches and Harbors, I think, has their antenna up there. So we will be utilizing that area. That's a lay-down roof, a typical hot mop style roof. So
This is not your typical roof, basically.
it's not, it's 2 roofs.
Yeah.
So at the beach. And so that is one of the things that we did find in the roof is that a lot of the flashings had deteriorated basically to nothing.
Okay.
And that was one of the things that we ran into.
Any idea how long this project will complete from start to finish?
Once we get started, barring our weather situations that we've been having, it will take about 6 weeks.
6 weeks, okay. All right. Does anyone have any questions related to this item? Yes, sure. Councilmember Baja.
Have you all decided the cedar shake or cedar shake simile is the best way to go because it matches everything else, or is it also the best considering the elements that it's going to face over the next, however many years?
This last roof lasted about 40 years, yes.
40 years, so. Okay.
And it's not so much the shingles that are deteriorating, it's the the metal underneath it.
Right.
And to do that, we have to, replace all of
Got
it.
it.
And the underlayment that's.
And the
not
underlayment, because it's leaked.
Cool, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Councilmember Barron?
Yeah, thank you. Do you anticipate any asbestos and asbestos remediation being required?
We tested the down below, and these are the roof up above. We've already tested for that. We don't have any.
Okay.
We do a full evaluation of the property when we're doing the remodel on the interior. And part of the reason for the leaks is that we found some issues where the water had leaked into the drywall, and we remediated that properly. And that was more of just environmental, that we had signs of black mold and things like that we wanted to make sure that we're treating properly.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anybody in the audience like to address this issue? I assume the substation this is for Police Chief Hoffman, or actually City Manager Witzinski. I assume this substation is frequently manned?
Well, that's what we're building up to. So these improvements and the interior remodel is part of our plan to build out the quality of life unit, particularly our police patrol and code enforcement efforts along the pier. And I think we're working towards that. And this summer should be quite active down there.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. Yeah, we expanded our MSO team, and we now have staffing on the pier on the weekends that started as of about a week ago. And that's part of the expansion so that we can have coverage down there for a lot of the quality of life type issues, in addition to the types of incidents that the officers are responding on. So the plan down there is to hopefully have the substation in a condition that it can be used as the summer approaches, and then have the entire pier unit down there with the MSOs that are assigned down there specifically for the Pier and Harbor area, and then also have aspects of the quality of life team that work out of there so that there's just an overall increased presence in that area.
Thank you. Okay, if nobody else has any comments, I'd like to make a motion to approve H7.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Okay, no comments on this one?
Yeah, no Zoom, just for the
Thank you.
record.
Thank you.
Read the resolution.
Thank you so
And
much.
then I have a resolution title
Okay.
for H7, and that is to adopt by title only resolution number CC 2402-004, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Redondo Beach, California, declaring replacement of the roof at the Police Pier substation as repair and exempting it from bidding requirements pursuant to sections 19 and 19.1A of the City Charter of Redondo Beach. That concludes the reading.
Okay, now we're going to go on to public participation on non-agenda items. Again, this is your chance to speak in front of the City Council for up to 3 minutes on any item that is not on tonight's agenda. And we encourage you to keep it to 3 minutes. It is 6:23 now. We allow for 30 minutes of discussion. I will read from the orange cards in order of who will speak. And then when we exhaust this list, we will go to anybody in public that would like to speak to this. Again, these are on non-agenda items. These are items that are not going to be discussed this evening. So the first person who'd like to speak is Austin Carmichael. And then after Austin is Joan Irvine. If you would, please, again, speak your name for the record, and if you live in the city of Redondo Beach, give us the district if you know the district that you're located in.
Will do. I have stuff for you all.
Okay, great. Okay, motion to receive and file. Is there a second? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Okay, sure. Yeah. It's not obvious, Austin, so, yeah.
So what I'm going to read from is also attached, and it's more than 3 minutes, so I'll be cut off, but you can see what my thought was. It's the first page. Oh, I already started. Okay. I don't have that. City Council, Mayor Pro Tem, City Clerk's Office, City Manager's Office, City Attorney's Office, and other members of staff. City of Redondo Beach, thanks for your time and careful consideration of my observations and advice. By way of introduction and background, I'm Austin Carmichael, resident of District 5, and also a member of the Redondo Beach Safety Commission. As you council may know, But for the record and for the edification of those who aren't aware, per ordinance 2777, effective September 5th, 1996, as amended ordinance 3189, effective May 16th, 2019, the Public Safety Commission shall advise the mayor and city council on matters relating to public safety and crime prevention, help serve as the citizen's voice in public safety affairs, providing suggestions for ensuring responsive and efficient public safety services, review public safety legislation when appropriate, and direct city council collaborate on, promote, and support community policing programs, and perform other such duties as directed by the city council. Ask for consideration for two items. One, that the Redondo Beach HR department, with respect to public safety items, be added to the oversight of the Public Safety Commission, because we get stuff from the police department and from the fire department, but I also believe that there's a third entity that's responsible for public safety, and that's HR. Skip past a second. Background, good. When I read the city manager's letter to the city at the beginning of 2023, 2024, I see HR in all 6 of the items that were listed, top of which was investing in employee compensation and benefits to ensure Redondo Beach is an attractive employer that retains and draws talent. When I read the city manager's subsequent strategic plan, which had 6 goals and 61 objectives, and the city of Redondo Beach adopted budget since 2015, I'm deeply troubled by not only HR putting forth only one item with a total comp and benefits price tag of $300,000, but also that one of the city's 3 safety entities is conspicuously missing. The entity being HR, which has placed in writing for the past 9 years that the city needs public safety and crime prevention policies and policy updates, specifically anti-harassment, substance abuse, personal vehicle use by public employees. It's missing. Like, they put it forward and then they don't do it. And then they put it forward and then they don't do it. And then they put it forward and then they don't do it. For the past 9 years, this has happened. So either they've done it and they've not updated the form, or they've not. And we've allocated funds based on that request and saying that this we're going to do, and I'm out of time. If I could have more time, I got like.
Sure, a motion to extend for a minute?
Second.
All in
Okay.
favor?
Aye.
Go ahead. Go ahead, you have an extra minute. Austin.
Okay. California Government Code 12940K, the law requires that employers take reasonable steps to prevent and correct wrongful harassment, discrimination, retaliatory behavior in the workplace. California Code 12950, an employer shall develop and distribute to its employees a harassment, discrimination, retaliation prevention policy that is, among other things, in writing. In California Code 1222, every willful omission to perform any duty enjoined by law upon any public officer or person holding any public trust or employment where no special provision is made for the punishment of such delinquency is punishable as a misdemeanor. The next section is dedicated to you all, so you can read it for yourself. But my last remaining, I just stand here speaking on behalf of the citizens who see public safety as a big tent. It's not just police, it's not just fire, but it's also HR. So that's the impetus for a lot of what I've just said. Yes.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Carmichael, may I ask a
Sure, yeah,
question? I have received
fine.
this, I thank you for this, and I've read it. What is it that you want the city to do?
You haven't read that. You read a version, but you haven't read
I'm sorry, I
that.
read the first 2 pages.
Oh, okay, okay,
Your
okay,
letter, your cover letter. But what is it in one sentence, what is it you want the city to change?
Oh, I have that in there. It's the last sentence of the first paragraph on the first page. That's why I'm pretty sure you haven't read it. But it is to add HR to the oversight purview of the Public Safety Commission in as much as the public safety policies. Because part of the law says every 6 months, the public safety policies of an employer have to be reviewed. And so seeing our anti-harassment, seeing our, that, and the only place that falls based on our current structure would be the Public Safety Commission.
Thank you for the clarification.
Thank you.
We can't react.
Okay, thanks very much.
All right, make it a great day.
Okay, next speaker is Joan Irvine. After Joe Irvine is Kevin Mitchell.
You're about as organized as I am. Hi, Joan Irvine, District 1. You're going to be seeing me with different hats tonight, because I'm going to be talking about different things. Mayor Pro Tem, City Council, City staff, people who are here and people who are out there. I'm here representing Keep the Esplanade Beautiful. One of the things that we do is we hold first Saturday sweeps every month. And one of the things that we're doing differently this year than we've done in the past is we're having different community organizations sponsor a sweep. In fact, the first one in January, Miriam Butler set it up for the Pack Scout 555. They came out and they helped clean up. In April, Beach City Health Districts is going to be sponsoring one of our sweeps. We're talking to the Chamber, and Leadership Redondo alumni are going to be sponsoring one. Also, Brad Waller, our Vice President, is talking to the school to get the school to sponsor one. So we're really doing a push out to do our community engagement and getting people involved. And in fact, in March, we have been put on the list that USC has a day of service. And we are on the list of the people that can, or the organizations that they will come. So March, I think it's 23rd, it's a sad day, they will be out there. So we're really trying to engage more and more people with our mission of keeping the Esplanade beautiful and community engagement. Also, and with the schools, one of the things we're going to be doing this year is we're going to be raising money to have a scholarship for a graduating senior who is going at Redondo High that is going to be focusing on environmental services and his or her further studies. So we're really trying to expand out, keep it on the Esplanade and expand out. And if the student that we give the grant to or the money to, we're going to be requiring them to make sure they come to a couple sweeps. It would be nice. And also we're trying to do some education with this. So when the Cub Scouts were there, the fact that you could talk to them about what we're doing, and it really teaches them volunteerism, it teaches them responsibility, it teaches them about the environment and about their community. So that's what I have. I'll be talking to you about other things throughout the evening. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, Kevin Mitchell's next, and after Kevin is Nikki Negrete Mitchell.
Hello, Kevin Mitchell, District 3. January 25th, we attended the South Bay Council of Governments to witness the council's vote on the Sea Line extension to Torrance. As expected, they abdicated their responsibility to take a position on the route alignment and instead only flagged their support to the Metro Board of Directors' authority to decide the future of the South Bay. An oft-repeated sentiment was that the Metro project did not affect their city, therefore, they did not wish to take a position. Torrance voted no, reflecting their no-build position, and Lawndale chose to abstain, reflecting their conflicted position. Redondo articulated its support for the Hawthorne option, but the apathy displayed from the rest of the council brought into question the relevance for the council to even exist. Mayor Butts, a Metro director, as much as said so. Though we've spent considerable time and effort to educate the council on the pitfalls of the row, I feel now that maybe we needed to bring in an actual chemicals and hazardous materials expert to convey to them the dangerous cocktail that moving liquid petroleum cars and high wattage electrical trains through the same overburdened corridor actually presents. John Oliver's recent expose on hazardous freight cars identified 22 liquid petroleum cars as having an equivalent blast power to Hiroshima. Torrance and San Pedro both have refineries that are still using hydrofluoric acid, an extremely corrosive and dangerous substance in their refinery processes. In 2015, the Torrance refinery had an explosive event. The U.S. Chemical and Safety and Hazard Investigation Board reported, quote, that a large piece of debris from the explosion narrowly missed hitting a tank containing tens of thousands of pounds of modified hydrofluoric acid, or MHF. Had the tank ruptured, it would have caused a release of MHF, which is highly toxic. The question of whether Metro's use of the road would affect surrounding municipalities is mute. The toxic and explosive potential of the substances being transported both above ground and below ground should be paramount to concern to the South Bay decision makers. Metro Sea Line extension to Taurus is not about what happens in my backyard. For South Bay residents, this is everyone's backyard.
Kevin, quick clarifying question. You mentioned Torrance having MHF. What was the other refinery?
San Pedro, the Valero.
The Wilmington one.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure that was clear. That's correct. Those are the only two I understand in California that use MHF, which is a very dangerous
Yeah.
chemical. Thank you. Nikki Negretti Mitchell's next, and after Nikki, the last card I have is Lee Collar.
Hello, good evening. Nikki Negretti Mitchell, District 3. Our South Bay Council of Governments had a full house with about 30 public speakers last Thursday, having the Sea Line matter finally agendized. The majority of delegates took the recommendation of COG staff to support the project, but remain neutral on alignment preference, and that was no surprise. Most claimed that alignment was not a part of their purview, therefore they did not even express an opinion on which option made the most sense to them. However, Hermosa Beach's mayor of current rotation, Massey, proclaimed he supports the project, and if there was a vote, he would vote for the right-of-way alignment because he claims, quote, he has not heard the case for Hawthorne Boulevard. Here's how that helps us. He made this statement on record in front of Metro Board personnel, including Director James Butts, who was present in the room. Also present in the meeting were deputies for our three primary directors, Hahn, Mitchell, and Butts, plus another one of Butts's surrogates. To break that down, Massey claims he hasn't heard the case for Hawthorne despite being present in at least 20 meetings over the past year and hearing all of our testimony, citing Metro's own documentation on higher ridership, similar construction costs, et cetera, weighed against the pitfalls of the right-of-way that was also included in Metro's draft EIR. He heard us all, plus two of our city council members, present the case for Hawthorne at his own city council meetings in Hermosa, plus he had just sat through Councilmember Nierenheim's in-depth presentation, which was full of arguments in favor of Hawthorne Boulevard. So to say he hasn't heard the case without making his case, compelling or not, as to why he prefers the right-of-way alignment, he exposed how unsubstantial all other right-of-way arguments really are and demonstrates lack of understanding or knowledge on the matter. They just don't know what they're talking about, and they don't even know why they're fighting us. Our new board director has come into this without any old baggage of 20-year-old deals, historical divisiveness, or clinging to old ideas. Supervisor Mitchell, with her fresh set of eyes and ears, allows her to be truly objective. As I've been sharing here, the current Metro Board of Directors has recently committed to restoring community trust while recognizing the county's history of inequitable policies and pledged to elevate regional sustainability goals. Director Butts expressed his disappointment for not getting any direction from our COG, and their lack of leadership leaves the ball in our court. March 28th could be the day we hear Metro's recommendation. Please reach out to Lawndale about the buses. They need reassurance that they won't be stiffed. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Lee Collar is the last card I have, and then beyond that, anybody would like to address the council on non-agenda items?
All right, thank you. City Council, Mayor Pro Tem. I'm Lee Collar, Redondo Beach resident, District 3, a staff Commodore at King Harbor Yacht Club. And for those who don't know, staff Commodore means I was a Commodore sometime in the past, and also currently serving as Vice Commodore of Southern California Yachting Association, SCYA, an association of 88 yacht clubs. I'm here to tell you some of the achievements of our local yacht clubs. First of all, serving as Rear Commodore of SCYA this year is Jody Masters Gonzalez, also Redondo Beach resident, I believe it's District 2, and a staff Commodore at Port Royal Yacht Club. My wife, Lorraine Collar, who has served as Secretary of SCYA for the last 4 years, was honored by SCYA by being named Honorary Commodore. I should mention, by the way, I didn't have anything to do with that decision, but I guess it means she outranks me. King Harbor Yacht Club won the SCYA Senior Yacht Club of the Year Award for the second year in a row. The purpose of this award is to promote the Corinthian spirit in yachting, foster the exchange of information among yacht clubs, and encourage civic involvement and reward participation in SCYA activities. I also want to note that KHYC had members win awards from the Association of Santa Monica Bay Yacht Clubs, an organization of 14 yacht clubs, most of which are Marina del Rey. Both Port Royal and King Harbor Yacht Clubs are members of this organization. From King Harbor Yacht Club, Vice Commodore James Lee and the crew of Marizia won the Home Harbor Trophy for the ASMBYC High Point Series, which just basically means it was the highest score among the King Harbor entrants. And they finished third overall, which means a couple people up in Marina del Rey actually beat them out, unfortunately. Parker Johnson of King Harbor Yacht Club won the Diane Armstrong Yacht Club Junior of the Year Award for 2023, awarded to the junior that best depicts the qualities of competition, camaraderie, and sportsmanship within the yacht club's individual program. I also note that King Harbor Yacht Club member Zafar Khan is currently serving as ASMBYC Commodore. So the Redondo Beach Yacht Clubs are represented throughout the yachting community well this year. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Staff Commodore Collar, can you tell us what, for the students in the room especially, what a Commodore is?
So the Commodore is basically, of a yacht club, is equivalent of a president of a corporation, president of a nonprofit, sort of equivalent of the mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Which basically means we take all the blame.
Okay, anybody else would like to speak on non-agenda items?
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, Council, and to Mr. Abaji's question, Commodores is a group, music group.
Yeah, I was thinking
Same, but the same era as Earth, Wind, and Fire, but I know you're not that old. Wanted to mention something that's not necessarily something I would talk about regularly, but I happened to have a couple of appointments today in Torrance, so I drove down Anns Avenue between Sepulveda and Lomita and another spot on Crenshaw. I gotta tell you, it was like driving through a minefield. There were potholes everywhere. Now, contrast that to Redondo Beach, didn't see anything. And I just wanted to commend Mr. Saman and Public Works for doing a good job. Torrance is a bigger city, and ironically, the potholes that I saw were right in front of where one city council member lives on Anns Avenue. So anyway, keep up the good work. I know it's a house when you have all this stuff going on, and I just wanted to piggyback to what Councilmember Abaji said earlier. They really do go above and beyond and really help us out. And we need to acknowledge that more often. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else would like to address the council on non-agenda items?
We do have someone with their hand raised on Zoom.
Okay.
Kyle Johnson, you may unmute yourself and begin speaking.
Hello, my name is Kyle Johnson, resident of District 1. I would encourage the city council, should they choose to attend any Metro Board meetings related to the Sea Line, to consider taking public transit. The Silver Line bus goes straight into downtown, and to basically put their money where their mouth is, and supporting public transit in Los Angeles and not charter private buses with any other cities. To support public transit means to use public transit, and I would encourage us all to get to know our cities better by taking the bus. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else would like to address the council?
If anyone else wishes to speak, please raise your hand on Zoom. Mayor Pro Tem, there's no one else on Zoom at this time.
Thank you so much. If you would, sure.
Hi, I'm Kim Liu. I am, a little nervous. Thanks for your minutes. I just want to say that after the pandemic, it's kind of dying down, that we're all good now. I just want to express how I appreciate the city and our getting together to help out those who have endured difficult times. I just recently discovered Beach Cities Health District as a public agency where we actually have so many resources for those who need. I myself have tried out attending the mental health first aid training, and I just want to share with everybody that Beach Cities Health District has lots of resources where you can go on and see what you need for your own help. It ranges the help from young to old, and resource like the mental health awareness. Mental health first aid is also for elderly, young, teens as well, where we can make time to go out and learn from each other and how we can help improve our community. I am a mother of two. And this district is very amazing. Our school, our police, our everything, transportation, everything that we're all fighting for to get help from everyone. But if we can just try to see how we can help start from the start of, I think, well, maybe a little biased, but I'm a mother of two, and I really appreciate teachers, the schooling, all these education that we're trying to reach out to our ages and parents to sit down and see how we can help our young kids who are coming out from this pandemic and need a lot of emotional support. Parents need financial support and emotion as well. So if we're more aware of our mental health and help each other out, I think it helps a lot. And I don't know, this is my first time here at this council. What I would hope the city can do is provide more support in education, and especially like in opioid, crisis and all this. It's just too much to have any incidents of any kids, innocent kids being, not educated enough about how to take care of themselves and all this. So I just hope we can reach out more and have the public come out to more city events. And I'm from Beach City Health District, and I signed up to be part of the strategic planning committee just to help reach out and have our community come out and engage and learn to improve our health and physical, mental health and all that. Can I have a little bit more minutes? Like just one more?
Sure. 30 seconds.
Another I want to emphasize is that with the pandemic, schools is really short in funding, and we're short in after-school hours. What childcare help? Parents have a hard time getting help after school. So if we remove the funding to help, provide more seats for the kids to go to school, it's going to really affect our kids, especially those who are impacted by the pandemic. So with the school lockdown, I don't think we should take away the resource to support kids. With the fact that with all these opioid crises that's causing so much health and death, I don't think it's fair for those who are in an okay position to have to lose the opportunity to excel and improve more. I think our mental health right now is so important, and how can we support provide the resource to parents who are so struggling to survive and then need extra care after school to help them work and have kids be healthy to come home. And at the same time, teachers are really bent backwards to help so many kids that are just coming out from the pandemic, especially third graders. And, that's when they are just out to go and learn. And then here we are cutting the social opportunities after school and all these. So I just hope that our city can continue to support children, especially at this time that they're actually having difficulty socializing.
Thank you, Kim. We have to actually.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. You did a great job. So, anyone else would like to speak on non-agenda items?
Mayor Pro Tem, I do have someone else that raised their hand.
Okay.
Nancy Skiba, please unmute yourself and you may begin speaking.
Good evening, City Council and Mayor Pro Tem, Nancy Skiba from District 4. I want to say that our Access Redondo is such a great website and a great tool for our residents. And our streets are such a beauty compared to what Torrance has. But if you need to ever report potholes, street signs, or anything else, you just go on that website and you just let them know what it is, and they will get on it really quickly. It's really wonderful how fast they are. And also I want to mention, with this rain going on, people are still driving really fast. And we've had a lot of accidents recently that have had fatalities. So let's all be careful and slow down Redondo. Thank you.
Thank you. Even though we can't really comment on non-agenda items, I will second what everybody said about our streets. We have great streets, and city manager and I have talked about that. So thanks to Public Works and the priority of this city council. Okay,
I have
anybody
two,
else?
just for the record, 2 comments on e-comments.
E-comments, okay, thank you. Anybody else who'd like to speak to non-agenda items? Okay, we're now on to items for discussion. And item N1, discussion possible action regarding the approval of an agreement with Tierra West Advisors for consulting services to assist with the review of the city's cannabis regulatory ordinances and development of the permit selection process. So Elizabeth House.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, City Council. Tonight, we're returning with the agreement with Tierra West for consulting services related to the review of our regulatory ordinances, as well as the development of our cannabis permit application process. We had initially brought this item to you on January 23rd, and at that meeting, council directed staff to return with an updated contract to today's meeting, and for that contract to include an additional $10,000 in the scope of work, specifically under technical assistance and subject matter expertise. And you'll see that's under phase 1 and objective 5. And just for clarification, this doesn't mean that Tierra West will for certain be doing additional work, and it doesn't mean we have to spend these funds. It just means that there is enough funding available should the council direct the additional studies or research be done. So the new total not to exceed amount for phase 1 is $68,000, which can be paid for out of our annual operating budget for contracts and professional services under our community development department. And that said, most of the costs can be recuperated through the fees we will collect from the permit application process once we launch that. And joining us tonight is John Unai. He is the principal and chairman of Tierra West. He was here with us last time as well. Joining him tonight is Jane McFerrin, a senior analyst with Tierra West. And we are all available to answer any questions you may have regarding the contract.
Did you request a 4-person council again?
I did not.
Would anybody like to speak to this item? Okay, if you would. Councilmember Obaji.
Sure, thank you. I watched last meeting, so thank you, by the way, for hanging in with that. You took a lot of tough questions. Thanks for being back here today. If you could light up 2B, I just have some slight, very tiny revisions to Exhibit A I'd like to incorporate. They're just, is that up? Yeah, okay, cool. So just inserting the word draft where it's not located. Work with the city staff to identify local concerns such as land use sensitive uses. No, sorry, not there. Confirm the ordinance. No, it's confirm the draft ordinance. And then also here I wanted, because there's gonna be a draft ordinance that comes to us, and that's what they're gonna be helping with when we adopt an ordinance. And then where it says review the city's draft cannabis regulatory ordinance, we don't just want you to just review it. We want you to provide comments, including any recommendations for revisions, which you naturally do, but I just want to make that express. And then lastly, in this subsection 2, advise the city on the most appropriate process for its needs, considering factors such as the number of available permits and anticipated volume of applicants. And I just want to make express the need for the city to weigh the applications based on objective criteria.
Correct.
That's what somebody's going to try to sue us on and say, hey, we didn't do this objectively, so we got it to the maximum extent possible, put in objective criteria that the staff can weigh and the city council can take into consideration. So with that, I'd be, with those revisions, do you have any objection to any of those revisions?
No, council member. No objections.
All right, cool. With that, I'd support this, adopting this moving forward with this contract.
Okay. Councilmember Barrett.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. My recollection from our discussion, thanks again for being here, Mr. Yanai.
Oh, my pleasure. The kayak didn't leak.
My recollection from the meeting we had 2 weeks ago was that assistance, if needed, on setting the rate of taxes was already included in the agreement. So I'm not in favor of adding another $10,000 to this. That wasn't my proposal. I think we should work within the 20 hours that's there, especially at $500 an hour. You're probably worth every penny. But But
Thank you.
yeah, bottom line, I don't think we should add that 20 hours. We should go with the revised language, which is what I had asked for, and I see that's in here, analyzing tax rates, but not add the additional 10,000.
Just to be clear on that, I thought the direction was also to comment and review delivery tax rates,
That's what I understood.
Right.
which is the additional 10. Is that right?
Just delivery, not retail? Just
Well, in addition to what was there
Right.
already.
right, okay.
Okay. My understanding that was all within already.
I think I recalled that was one of the
delivery was
requests as
added.
part of the motion, I thought. Could be wrong.
I recall
remember?
that that was the
So-
additional service you wanted us to review and incorporate in addition to your retail rates.
So I believe,
Review the delivery.
yeah, I believe the motion was made by Councilman Nierenheim.
Correct.
But it was to address an issue that Councilman Barrett had brought up. So it may be that if you don't want the additional money, then you can, I feel confident, and she can throw something at me, but I believe that the change was made because of the motion that was actually made, not because of any staff recommendation. So if the majority of the council doesn't want the money in there, that's
Okay.
completely fine with staff.
Is that your understanding, Ms. House?
I reviewed the final motion and it did specify that we add the $10,000.
I recall that too.
And the 10,000 was to analyze and give direction on delivery tax rates.
That was part of the conversation earlier in the meeting, but it wasn't included in the final motion. The final motion just wanted additional monies available for research.
Okay.
So it's really up to anyone who makes a motion to either accept this or to withdraw the $10,000 and make it only $58,000.
We'll come to that. I think it should come out unless city staff's ready on AB 195, track and trace and everything else at this point. No? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I would note is if the money's in there as a not to exceed and we don't direct the work, we should conceivably save those funds. So it would come down to us to assign the additional hours of work. If there's concern about the hours and any one of these elements, I think it's A through M under objective E, or are not of priority, we can strike them now and just focus on what's there. But otherwise, we can pivot throughout the course of the ordinance review at council's discretion.
And so one option would be to take it out, come back later.
As needed.
As needed, negotiate depending on satisfaction or dissatisfaction potentially with the services received and go from there.
That would be another option. You could pull it out, then limit it to the 20. We'll have to be very specific about how we utilize those first 20 hours, though.
Yeah.
And we'll have to bring that forward fairly judiciously.
Okay. Any thoughts on when we may have something, and I apologize if I didn't raise this earlier in our discussions, on AB 195, track and trace and getting a sales tax in place on what's being sent to the city? Any time frame on when we may have that?
I think we're planning to bring that conversation to you with the balance of the ordinance review.
Correct.
So I think we're targeting March. That's where we're at.
All right. So TR West Advisors, TWA?
Yes, that's fine.
They would be coming in as our consultant. We had the previous consultant, HDL.
Correct.
Is it the same scope of work essentially, that HDL? Is that, yes, you're shaking your head?
For the most part, we pulled from a lot of what HDL did that wasn't
Yeah.
completed or finalized, and we do need a consultant's help to re-review our ordinances, rewrite certain portions of it. All the errors we identified in our December meeting with you, we need a consultant's assistance with all that. So there is quite a bit of similarity between HDL's contract as well as Tierra West.
And there is some updating based on Elizabeth's analysis of the discrepancy between the two documents, and we've targeted specifically gap analysis, fit gap. I think we've got some other phrasing in here that are specifically cited to help address what we view as deficiencies between the two documents.
Okay. What did we pay HDL for the work they performed?
When I looked at their purchase order, we had spent about $20,000.
20,000?
There was a lot of work left to complete.
Okay. The work being proposed in this agreement doesn't include phase 2, which is the processing.
Correct.
Correct.
Any ideas to what that may ultimately cost?
That's part of the work that was not finalized by HDL. They were supposed to provide us a fee schedule that would help us determine that final cost. It wouldn't be a cost to the city, though. It would be recuperated through the fees we charge the consultants. So, not the consultant, the applicants, I apologize.
Correct.
There's limits on that amount though, right? I mean, it can't.
Correct.
We
It would
can't
be-
charge
It's not
unlimited
open-ended.
amounts and say, don't worry, the applicants will repay it. There's no free lunch. Any amount we charge them is an additional expense. Potential applicants may fall off to the sides. Maybe somebody we wanted, they're like, look, it's too much. Or they'll just, whoever wins will just jack up the prices to our residents to recover those costs. So even though the city will recuperate, those costs exist ultimately though, right?
And part of our work between now and then is to set that fee and determine how much work we anticipate needing through that review process. Some of that will be dependent on the application process that's ultimately adopted.
We anticipate farming that out or to have staff do it?
Ideally, farming it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's our hope. That's part of why we're creating this sort of phase 2 analysis now and making sure that that's a clear set of work that would come later. We don't have to do that. We can do it in-house, but it will create delays in time and it will ultimately divert much of our staff's attention from other items.
Other items, other priorities. And then, Mr. Unai, I know you haven't dug in, but I understand you're generally aware with our current ordinance that limits the city to 2 dispensaries?
Correct. Yes, I am.
Are you generally okay with that approach? Or when you consult with cities, do you say, hey, don't limit it, just open it up and avoid conflicts later from bad candidates? Or not from bad candidates, from unhappy candidates?
That's dependent upon the city, for you as policymakers, how many you want to allow within the city. Cities range from no limitation to very much like yours, limitations.
Do you advise no limitation?
No, I don't advise no limitation. I do, it would be subject to you've already approved the 2. And is there an opportunity for you to come back in the future and increase that? That'd be subject to certainly your prerogative to move that forward.
Okay.
There's an opportunity. To me, it's an economic development opportunity. There's a demand issue. I think the state's made it very clear that it's legal, and you have the opportunity to participate in that. And other cities I know that are not in the cannabis business, unfortunately or fortunately, still receive deliveries from other cities that allow it. So it's a tough decision for you as council members, I understand.
Okay.
And I recommend that you move forward and apply adequate fees, as the city manager indicated, to cover your costs. It's intended to be a net neutral activity to your general fund. So we want to make sure that these costs, some of your time, some of the city manager's staff time, the review, analysis, and phase 2 and all that is taken care of in your staffing time. Because when you get into the building side at the end of the day, your fees are all set and they're fine.
City of Atalanta?
Yes.
You recently advised them?
Yes, we continue to advise them.
Okay. In their case, did you advise them, don't do a merit-based system, have it open to increase the number of dispensaries? Was that something you advised them to do?
We didn't advise them on that. They made a choice as a policy decision because of their need, not being in the same general revenue realm that the city of Redondo Beach is, to use it as a tool. And so they opened it up to basically unlimited.
That was an option you presented to them?
That was an option, yes. And that you have that choice.
Are you the point person on cannabis vis-a-vis cities, or is that someone else from your staff?
That would generally be me.
That's you.
Right.
And did you bring a colleague here today, Ms. Jane?
Jane McFerrin, yes.
Okay. And what is Ms. McFerrin's role?
She is one of our senior folks in reviewing and creating processes dependent upon each ordinance. Each ordinance is different. Cities decide on different processes that they'd like to follow, different numbers. And that form of analysis and creating a fair way to rate the projects and the applicants is something that we work on, and it's really based upon the ordinance, trying to turn it into something that is as objective as possible.
Okay.
And that doesn't mean that you won't get potentially sued, as the councilman mentioned, that, that's an opportunity by everybody, and it's somewhat of it's an interesting group. But I think in your case, you're seeing a more refined, developed applicant. We're seeing as time goes on, the more adept, the more qualified, the more financial able applicants are the ones that are rising to the top, as it should be.
Okay.
And so I think you're in a perfect position right now.
All right. And Luis Morales, is he
Yes, he's
still
our
on your
director of
staff?
planning, and unfortunately, he could not make it tonight. His boat didn't work too well.
Is he one of the primary people on cannabis?
Yes, he's on our planning side, yes. So
All right.
he'll review all the planning, design, and layout, and that's his actual degree.
Okay, thank you, Mr. And I thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Obagi.
So I may be beyond my skis, but I feel like we had a cannabis task force that for years met over this stuff and came up with this scheme of 2 cannabis retail shops, one in North Redondo, one in South Redondo, and that we followed that. I don't want to revisit stuff that we already spent years developing, and because if we take long enough, Councilmember Narenheim, Mayor Pro Tem Lowenstein will be gone. We'll have 2 new council members, and they'll change the direction once again. So I'd love to move forward on this. If you could show 2B again, just for clarity, and subsection F on Exhibit A, I did want to make sure that it's clear that it's a cannabis ordinance that they're providing drafts of.
Yeah.
It says provide 1 initial draft cannabis ordinance, 1 iterative draft of a cannabis ordinance, if that's what we're talking about. All right, now, as for the money, $10,000 or not $10,000, Mr. Wazansky, Ms. House, would you prefer that money be in there allocated or not?
Well, I prefer that we put the money we need to cover the scope of work. So if
That was 58,000 before.
if we want full review of other municipalities' tax structure, both for retail and for delivery, if we want to have flexibility and having them review and analyze other pursuits that may come up as part of follow-up discussions, whether it be on buffer maps or other comparative analysis, it depends on how it really comes down to how much flexibility we want in the contract going forward. That's what this is. So if we want flexibility to study things that we haven't thought about yet, I would say keep it in. If it's going to be straightforward and cover just the topics that we've discussed, we can probably find a way to make it work with the original 20 hours. That was the conversation we had.
Ms. House, do you have any different opinion than that?
Then my boss? No.
No. Well, seeing as you're going to be having to deal with it. Yeah. All right.
I would agree. I think that if we need to go back to the well and ask for additional money, we can do so. But
Okay, so I'll make a motion to adopt this contract as I've amended it on the screen, or at least provide suggestion for nitpicky language changes on the screen here, and go back to the original amount of $58,000. And yeah, that's it. Move forward.
Okay, I will second that motion. Is there anybody in the audience who'd like to speak to this? We have one card. It's Joan Irvine. So Joan, if you'd like to speak to this. And anybody else beyond Joan would like to speak to it, you'll have a chance to do so.
And just to be clear, before Mr. Irvine speaks, that we would revise the scope to reflect 20 hours of work at that point, as opposed to the 40 if we are to reduce, right? So we need to make a change to objective 5 as well.
Sure.
Okay.
And you're going to send a copy of your
Sure, I'll extract these
amendments
up.
to
Yeah.
the clerk's office.
I'll extract those 2 pages that I showed on the screen and send them to the clerk. Yes, thank you.
Joan Irvine, District 1 here, representing myself with my cannabis hat on. Wow, excuse me, how much more can you kick the damn can down the road? I am shocked. But I am here to express my support for the city engagement with TRW as consultants for the cannabis dispensary policy review application and the subsequent application reviews. However, my hope is that this does not prolong the process any further than the city already has. To provide some context, the journey toward legalizing cannabis, recreational cannabis in Redondo has been a lengthy one. Recreational cannabis was legalized in 2016 with a significant majority of the Redondo Beach voters approving this. Advocacy efforts by myself and Jonathan began in 2017. The Cannabis Advocacy Committee was established in 2018. The City Council approved their recommendation ordinance either in 2021 or 22. The voters gave their approval for the tax rate in March of 23. Wow. But the reality is that legal dispensaries may not be operational until 26 with everything that is going on. A decade to approve 2 stores raises concerns about the use of our precious limited resources, especially given our financial challenges that the city currently faces and the surge in legal issues. This delay has far-reaching consequences. The growth of the illegal market poses a risk to our community, especially to the children. And you brought up the fentanyl. The illegal market doesn't care what they sell to whom, and they're going to lace it with anything. So the delay is really a health issue for seniors and to our children. And it's because of this delay that the fentanyl is coming into our community more than it has. Residents are being made criminals because everybody is getting delivery already. I talk to people, they go, "Oh, you mean it's not legal?" And I'm going, "No, it's not legal. That we have to drive to another city." Also, an outside company had a Measure A and a recall of Baji added to the special election, which incurred a hefty cost of over $300,000. I can go on, but we've also lost tax money. We forfeited a $200,000 state grant by delaying things. 7 years later, and look at it. Therefore, what I want to do, and we're doing analysis paralysis. Therefore, I agree that the staff, that we should move forward, but with clearly defined milestones and delivery dates. Our financial health and the well-being of our residents depend upon finally having a resolution to this matter. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak to this item? Mr. Svetko.
Good evening, everyone.
Could you state your name?
Oh, yes, forgive me. Jonathan Svetko, District 1, Redondo Beach resident. A couple of updates that I think are worthy to share here. I think I've made my position very well clear here that the city can benefit tremendously and immediately by starting to tax delivery sales coming in, for which we cannot stop, at least for the medical side of things. It avoids a lot of the hassles and a lot of back and forth we keep talking about here. We get those immediate benefits from that. Other updates for you to be aware of. I keep sharing with you how much of an absolute disaster this industry is going through right now. Earlier this year, Governor Newsom had announced his proposed budget, and in that budget, what AB 195 proposed to do was to establish a minimum threshold that the taxes would bring in order to support funding for youth prevention efforts, enforcement, and so on. We have used up the $150 million within the first 6 months of that passing that was set aside just in case we fell underneath that threshold. And now we've fallen so poorly underneath that threshold that Governor Newsom has proposed a $100 million loan from the general fund, of which we are now seeing that the general fund is being proposed, is coming in at $68 billion deficit this year. So we're borrowing from ourselves to pay for something that we can't afford, all for an industry that is failing actively in front of us here, and I cannot stress that enough to you. Earlier it was mentioned that we have a selection process here that would select the cream of the crop, the ones best funded, and so on. If you hadn't heard, and it will be coming into the news even more so here soon, MedMen, who we've talked about multiple times here as being one of the premier retailers showcasing what cannabis can be. MedMen, who was valued at $3 billion, their stock has gone down to $0. They are being disassembled as we speak, and their assets sold off if they are lucky to even find buyers for those assets. We have lost the biggest distributor in the state. We had multiple tax issues going forward, continuing to go forward. We're talking right now with Senator Bradford to reintroduce our tax bill from last year, but we're having direction from the state saying that because it would potentially affect the general fund, it's probably not going to even be on the table for us to discuss this year. So the industry continues to have free fall efforts with no one there to support, and yet we somehow find some wisdom to move forward on right now, to move forward on giving opportunities for storefronts that doesn't seem to make any financial sense. Just earlier this month, we had Steezy, which was one of the biggest California operators in here, exposed that they had all these funds because they have been running and operating illegal shops throughout California. I can't stress enough how poorly broken our system is that these operators are now forced to run on illegal operations in order to bring in these funds. We have a lot of systemic issues we need to fix here. I don't know why we as a city are forcing ourselves to go forward on this. Councilmember Babaji was right. We spent a lot of time to put together a committee to give recommendations here. That was based on truths that we knew back then. We should afford ourselves the opportunity to consider what the facts and the evidence say here today and what is best for our city. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else would like to speak to this item? Anybody on Zoom?
We have a couple hands raised on Zoom. The first speaker, Melissa Decadent. Please unmute yourself and you may begin speaking.
Thank you. Apologies. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, council members, and city staff. My name is Melissa DeShant. I'm a District 1 resident and also the parent to a student who is part of the Redondo Beach Unified School District, our destination school district. I'm here tonight to speak on behalf of the youth, and I want to urge you all to consider a delivery-only model for our city. In addition to being a working scientist, I'm a bench-trained immunologist. I currently have the privilege of serving as the Director of Community Concerns for the 33rd District PTA, supporting over 18 school districts. I want to just share, and this is all based on behalf of our youth. TH levels have increased significantly over the last 40 years, and there are so many more formulations. There's shatter, dabs, vapes, waxes, resins, edibles, oils, some containing as much as 80 to 99% THC, with high potency THC dominating the cannabis markets in California. This has led to the exposure of our youth to high potency cannabis preparations, leading to increased frequency of use, increased dependency, and the progression to higher potency products. As our former Surgeon General elegantly stated, this is simply not your mother's cannabis. Peer-reviewed data, and there is ample peer-reviewed data, and as a scientist, I'm only referring to peer-reviewed data. It supports that the younger the age of use and the earlier the exposure to THC, the greater the risk of addiction, the use of higher potency products, and the ill effects of acute and long-term cannabis use. This includes, and this is a laundry list, increased cardiovascular events, hyperemesis, impaired driving, cannabis use disorder, decreased cognition, attention, memory, learning, poor school performance, poor sleep, coordination, and social interactions. We see repeated increased learning loss, missed school days, depression, anxiety, psychosis, schizophrenia, and suicidal ideation, all increasing with regular youth cannabis use. Regular users are 7 times more likely to attempt suicide. Frequent youth use leads to IQ drops, which are not caught up, with daily users 60% less likely to graduate from high school and attend college, and this impacts educational and vocational attainment. Also, I want to mention EVALI, which is e-cigarette or vaping-associated lung injury, something I'm acutely familiar with. It's often a fatal lung condition that's directly linked to the vaping of cannabis, and that continues to rise across the U.S. The CDC actively tracks this. The developing adolescent brain is more susceptible to cannabis exposure, which increases the risk for impairment during this really important neurocognitive developmental time. And our LGBTQIA youth are 2.5 times more likely to use cannabis and be diagnosed with cannabis use disorder. Pregnant individuals who expose their infants in utero have the risk of not only low birth weight babies and increased respiratory infections, but a greatly increased risk of having children with neurodevelopmental problems that are seen at 9 years of age. Finally, outlet density increases the risk and frequency of cannabis use and addiction in students as young as 6th grade. There's very, very elegant data
Time's
that was
up.
collected by the...
Motion to extend 30 seconds.
Second.
Thank
All in
you.
favor?
Aye.
Okay.
I'll make
continue.
this quick. The RAND Corporation collected some very elegant data here in Los Angeles where they looked at the effect of 12 and 13-year-old students who saw daily cannabis marketing materials, including billboards, dispensaries, etc. And it demonstrated that not only did this further normalize the use of cannabis in our youth, but it also increased the cannabis use in this age group. Cannabis is a public health concern for our youth. Our city has the ability and the opportunity to responsibly support delivery-only access to cannabis and to mitigate exposure to our vulnerable youth while still allowing safe and responsible access of cannabis to all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Devin Wardlow. You may unmute yourself and you may begin.
Thank you, members of the council. My name is Devin Wardlow, Vice President of Public Affairs at Embark. I want to thank the city for their diligent efforts to bring responsible retail cannabis to Redondo Beach through a competitive licensing process. As a cannabis operator with 12 storefronts throughout California, all won through merit-based licensing processes akin to that of which Redondo Beach is pursuing, I want to commend city leadership and staff for taking the necessary steps to move forward with finalizing and implementing a cannabis retail selection process. And also to touch on some of the comments from council members tonight, I would just want to remind the city that the Department of Cannabis Control, the DCC at the state level, has a grant program specific for municipal governments that are looking to implement retail cannabis to provide grants to help them cover the cost of implementing and going through the municipal process of implementing retail cannabis. If you move forward today, you still can be eligible to receive state funding, and this program closes in March. I hope city staff will look into the DCC's grant program to help offset costs for the city of Redondo Beach. And I urge council to move forward with implementing retail cannabis in your city. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else on?
Is there anyone else on Zoom wishing to speak? Please raise your hand at this time. Mayor Pro Tem, no one else has raised their hand. That concludes.
And I have one e-comment that opposes.
Is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak to this item? Councilmember Rabaji?
Yeah, just want to say, Mr. Shawn, I don't disagree with a lot of what you're saying, and I do think that cannabis use by our youth is probably one of the most detrimental things to their future that possibly could occur. With that said, cannabis use is occurring among our youth. Just about a month or 2 months ago, I called a car full of kids parked in a disabled parking spot at Perry Park, smoking weed, into the Redondo Beach Police Department, and found out that subsequently police officers arrived on scene and cited those individuals. So it's happening, and the only way that we're going to be able to combat it, in my opinion, is to come up with a legal means for adults to attain it and generate revenue for that, so we can put that revenue, at least some of it, towards cannabis education for our youth. But right now, as far as I can tell, youth have access to cannabis unfettered, and there's insufficient education occurring with regard to it. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in council like to speak to this item? Okay, there is a motion on the floor in the second. I'll do a roll call vote. Councilmember Kalujarevich.
Aye.
Councilmember Rabaji.
Aye.
Councilmember Barrett.
Aye.
And I myself. Motion passes 4-0. Thank you. Okay, on to item N2, discussion and possible action regarding the installation of speed cushions on the 800 block of North Lucia Avenue. Ryan and Ted.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Actually, I'm going to say a couple of words on this and then just hand it over to Ryan because he's gone through the process of discussing and getting the residents of the block to get their approval and support, gone through the commission, and now he's presenting it to you for consideration. Ryan?
Good evening, Council and Mayor Pro Tem. The item before you tonight is a proposed speed cushions on the 800 block of Lucia. I have some slides ready.
Staff presentation.
So just as a general overview, here's the block of North Lucia. It's about 950 feet in length between the stop signs at Anita and the stop sign at Agate. So there's no current speed control measures along this block. The city has a process and policy for speed cushions. The city staff received this request in May of 2023. During the summer, staff did some preliminary analysis and found that there were no slope or alignment concerns, any physical attributes of the street that would prevent speed cushions from being installed. After that process was passed, we provided petition signature sheets to the resident. According to the city's policy, it requires 2/3 resident support in order for staff to begin the study for speed cushions. After we received and verified the 2/3 resident support along the block, the city began our study. That study consisted of a speed and volume analysis. So we measured about 1 week's worth of speed and volume data along that street. According to the city's policy, the street has to receive average of less than 3,000 cars per day and an 85th percentile speed of at least 32 miles per hour. Under both of those conditions, that street met that, less than 3,000 cars and a 33 mile per hour 85th percentile speed. This item was then brought to the Public Works and Sustainability Commission for discussion, where it was unanimously recommended for city council approval. So just some general information about what we're proposing here. We're proposing 2 sets of speed cushions on the 800 block of Lucia, approximately 300 to 350 feet apart. That provides, various opportunities for drivers to slow down or not get up to a certain speed. They would experience the speed hump, another 300 feet, a speed hump, and then the stop sign. We would install the associated signage and striping for these speed humps in accordance with industry standards. These speed humps would not remove any street parking. We wouldn't have to repave the street. These would be prefabricated models that we would buy in and install on the street. We're actually looking into a new manufacturer and a new model to provide a little bit more of a comfortable experience for drivers, a different installation process. It would still slow speeds to desired 25 miles per hour average or lower, but would provide a little bit more comfortable experience. Current city practice is to install speed cushions with a bypass for emergency vehicles so that there are little inlets to the sides of them where a fire truck could pass through without slowing down as much. During this process, city staff have also received feedback on locations for the speed cushions, some opposition and some support. So we currently on the next page, we're showing these proposed locations. And just to say that at the end of the day, city staff and the city council have the final say on the exact locations of these speed cushions in the public right of way. So as you can see here, we have one speed cushion proposed right around 811, 814, and 829, 8 to 831, 832 to 834 on Lucia. So this provides a roughly 300 to 350 foot stretch of street between speed control devices. So happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Noise, what are we looking at in terms of noise?
Yeah, so speed cushions can generate a little bit of noise when drivers are going through them. But I would say that over time, when drivers are learning to adjust, they will learn to not speed up and slow down drastically between each set of speed cushions. And perhaps some of the overall noise could decrease because instead of a driver going 35 miles per hour, they might be going 20, which could be an overall decrease. But there is a bit of a chance of some extra noise at the speed cushions, but we don't have any data to measure that.
Okay. I have 3 cards right now. Would you like to hear from the public first, or would you like to comment?
Questions?
Sure. Councilmember Obaji.
Is there a reason that we use cushions instead of wide humps?
Yeah, so the terminology, there's different terms for these types of treatments. We call them speed cushions because they're sort of little pillows with, they're prefabricated. So the way it works is that instead of a single hump that would require any vehicle to slow down, these have little slits in the middle where a car with a very wide wheelbase, like a fire truck, could sort of bypass them and not have to get hit with the bump.
Yeah, and the other is cost. Speed cushions as prefabricated are a little more expensive up front, but they are considerably less expensive in the long run. Because every time you repave a street with the traditional method of constructing a speed hump, you have to basically remove that and then reconstruct it after the street has been done. And therefore you wind up paying almost 4 times for the same location, where these are, they're bolted into the ground. We remove them before the street gets resurfaced and then reinstall them right afterwards.
Thank you.
Okay. I have 3 cards. Jessica, I'll read the cards. Jessica Menchesoglu and Pam Emch. So Jessica, if you'd like to approach the dais. And then when I'm finished with the cards, we'll go to Zoom or anybody in the audience.
All
right. Thank you very much. My name is Jessica Mentisholu, resident of District 2 for over 23 years. I live on the 800 North Lucia block, and I am the one who's helped get the process started. And I'd like to commend the city for having a process in the first place, because it really is an inclusive process that allows residents, the commission, and the council to review what's at hand. And what I think is interesting is that we're discussing this and debating this in the first place, because the data shows that we have a speed issue. There's a campaign, Drive Slow Redondo. The accidents that occur around the city have been mentioned. And we chose to live on that street because it is a residential neighborhood, close to an elementary school. It should be 25 miles per hour, and it's not. Ever since North Maria got closed off, traffic has increased. A volume of 500 some cars going up and down that street, especially averaging 33 miles an hour, is not safe at all. And when we were gathering the signatures, it was one signature per residence, right? Each residence might have 4 or 5 people living there, including children, right? So this poses a safety concern for a lot more people. So, yes, there may be 50 residences on that street, but we have neighbors to, the 700 block of North Lucia. We have neighbors on Agate, all who have commented on the safety issues at hand. So again, thank you very much for reviewing this, and I hope we can move forward. As the engineers have indicated, these are speed cushions. They can be removed with the exact same process that we went through to install them, and they're relatively easy. And I think it's a safety measure that we should take, because yes, there are larger issues at hand, but this is kind of the issue, the means that we can take right away, an immediate action that we can take to calm the traffic. Thank you.
Just for clarification purposes, do you live close to where the cushions, you're going to be living right near where the cushions are going to be in?
Yes, I will be relatively close. I will see the cushions. And I do want to point out that the location of the cushions was revised based on comments made at the commission meeting. So, thank you.
Thank you. Pam, you're next. And then after Pam is Sharon Klein.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and City Council. Thank you for the time. My name is Pam Emsch, and I live in the 800 block of North Lucia Avenue. I've lived there for over 25 years. And I support the installation of the speed cushions, and I signed the petition. So I'm just going to add a few comments. I put some more detailed information online, but let me just make a few points. So in the 25 years that I've lived there, I've definitely seen an increase in the number of cars traveling up and down Lucia, and also in the speed. And my property is actually located about 3 houses downhill from the T intersection of Agate and Lucia. So I have a pretty good view of the cars approaching the 800 block and coming downhill from the 700 block of Lucia, and also coming up Agate. And I'm on my front lawn a lot since I have a big garden, as Commissioner Lowenstein knows. So I think there are a couple of things that have exacerbated the speed on the 800 block of Lucia. And one of them is that T intersection there at Agate and Lucia. There are 3 stop signs. And so Agate comes uphill, and the T and Lucia is like that. And the 700 block of Lucia is a pretty big slope. So people come down slope, and a lot of people barely stop at that stop sign where Agate comes in. And similarly for people coming up Agate and turning either way, people are stopping less and less. They slow down a little bit. So when cars are coming down the 700 block of Lucia, they continue down the 800 block. So it gives them sort of a long sweep if they just barely slow down at that stop sign. So they can really come down the 800 block of Lucia quickly, more quickly than you might think. So that's one factor. Also, I think there is an increase in traffic since the traffic blockages and calming items were put on the corner of Maria and 190th, uphill, just up behind us. So I think that's increased the traffic as well. And so in general, I think speed is a problem going both uphill and downhill on Lucia and on that 800 block. And I really do believe that the speed cushions can help. And I actually like where they're placed, I think, because again, I think of where the stop signs are and where 190th is, and it just looks like good placement to me. So I do appreciate that, and hopefully that will work well. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Sharon, you're next. And then after Sharon will be anybody else who'd like to speak.
Okay, I'm Sharon Coy. I'm District 2, and I've been living in the 800 block of Lucia since 1998. So we've been there for a long time. Originally, my husband and I bought the house on the street because it was only a one-way once you get down to the 800 block to north towards 190th. And you can only make a right turn. So for a long time, it's always been very quiet. A lot of cars don't pass through there unless you live on the street. So as time goes on, traffic increases, residence increases due to a lot of duplexes or 200 lots. And Maria had closed off, so a lot of cars come through our street as well. Along with when PCH is impacted heavily, people want to take a shortcut, they would come up Agate and make a turn on Lucia and exit towards 190th. So cars are going by really fast, and my kids used to be able to play outside. Nowadays, even my daughter tried to play lacrosse out there with her friends, just doing quick catches. It's like impossible because cars are going so fast. So I would believe the speed cushion will really dramatically help reduce traffic and the speed in that area on our street. And it would help the safety of our neighbors and people just to go slow. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in the public would like to speak to this item? Okay, Councilmember Obaji.
Excuse me, Mayor Pro Tem, we do have a few.
We'll make it to
people on Zoom.
Councilmember Baji, and then we'll go back to. Would you like
Let's just finish hearing the residents, yeah.
That's fine. Okay, go ahead.
Comments.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. The first speaker is Kyle Johnson. Please unmute yourself and you may begin speaking.
Hello, my name is Kyle Johnson with District 1, here to, support the addition of speed cushions on the 800 block of North Lucia Avenue. Where I live in District 1, there are speed cushions along Avenue F, and they're doing a great job at slowing down drivers and encouraging people to drive safely. I think if we want Drive Slow Redondo to be more than just a slogan, we need to install measures like these to ensure that people are driving safely and that children can play outside and not have to worry about cars. Thank you.
And then we have 26 e-comments. 3 are opposed, 1 neutral, and the 22 support.
Okay.
And I have a few more hands up on Zoom. The next speaker is David Waldner. Please unmute yourself and you may begin. David? Hello, David? Oh, wait, okay, we'll come back to.
Come back to him.
Oh, there he is.
Hello?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem Lowenstein and council members. I'm David Waldner. I've owned and lived at 820 North Lucia for almost 39 years. I'm strongly opposed to the installation of the speed cushions within 27 yards of the front of my home for the following reasons. The noise generated by an average of 462 vehicles a day driving over those cushions would be absolutely intolerable. It's not just an imagined thing, as I've personally observed and recorded the noise generated on other streets in South Redondo that have speed cushions. It's not just the noise of the car or the truck thumping over the cushions, but also the associated noise from the exaggerated braking and then acceleration that occurs each time a vehicle goes over the bumps. The noise would affect our ability to sleep and the general enjoyment of our neighborhood, and it's a blight on the neighborhood. I propose that alternative measures be implemented, including street traffic, lane narrowing and calming by adding white striping along the roadside, such as what was done on North Maria Avenue. And also the installation of speed radar signs would be helpful also. These signs are currently in place on Burl Street near the elementary school. They're solar powered, easily installed and maintained, and they've proven to be effective. Additionally, there are no speed limit signs on the 800 block of North Lucia Avenue. So people coming off of the PCH and onto Agate and making a left, most people, I would imagine, don't even know what the speed limit is. So they're going to go as fast as they can. So those speed limit radar signs would be a big help. In closing, in efforts to preserve the quality of life in the neighborhood, we ask that you do not approve speed cushions, but instead consider to implement alternative methods. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
One more speaker, Paul Moses. Please unmute yourself and you may begin.
Good evening, Paul Moses, District 2. I live on the 800 block of North Lucia. In fact, I live right between where the two proposed speed cushions will be. I support the installation of the speed cushions. It's the only thing that's going to work. Speed limit signs are about as effective as the stop sign at the 700 block of Lucia. No one stops at that stop sign ever. I do, but I have yet to see anyone completely stop at that stop sign. So signs are just a suggestion and most people ignore them. So this is the only solution that's going to work. The majority of the neighborhood wants the speed cushions and the data supports that they should be installed. So thank you for your time.
Hey, anyone else on Zoom?
Does anyone else on Zoom wish to raise their hand to speak at this time? Mayor Pro Tem, I have no other speakers with their hands raised.
Okay, Councilmember Rabaji.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I want to commend you residents for gathering two-thirds of the signatures of two-thirds of the residents on that block. 'Cause you can't, I don't know if it's different in District 2, but in District 4, you can't get 66% of the people to open their door, let alone sign a piece of paper. So bravo. And this really speaks to my heart, the desire for quieter, safer streets. It's true you have a speed problem on that street. I can see why when you do a Google Street View. It's a long street. People think that they can gun down through it. And to the resident who is concerned about the number of people who are going to drive over the speed cushion, I think what the public works professionals, experts will tell you is that when these speed cushions are put in, people will find other ways to cut through, and it's going to cause pouring out onto other streets. I don't know what they'll be here, but I fully support this and thank you for your activism. I've had people come to me for stop signs in my district, and I'm totally in favor of that, but you actually got the signatures, and this is where we really should give you what the super majority of residents are asking for. That's it.
Okay, Councilmember Kawajarovich.
Yeah, just a quick echo of what was said earlier. We do have a policy for
Bring it up on Zoom.
Oh, sorry. We do have a process to qualify these changes, and this clearly met the criteria for that. I will also say that I have speed cushions on my street. It's kind of a busy street. We have a church there. It's a cut-through street, and it helps. I have kids on my street that play in front yards, and I feel completely safe for them to do so. So I support this.
Thank you. I live on the 700 block up the street in the middle of that large hill. I've firsthand seen that street. It has gotten worse over the years. I can attest that people do not stop at that stop sign. It's frustrating as can be. The three of you, thank you for being here. And you're all within very close proximity to where one of the speed cushions would be. I was witness to somebody literally driving, and I'm not exaggerating here, 65 miles an hour down that street. I actually called Police Chief Hoffman and I said, you need to get somebody out there to talk to them, because it was not a joke. And I screamed at this person saying, slow down. And I actually left a note on their Jeep saying, this is a residential neighborhood. This is not tolerated. 65 miles an hour. And I it could have been 55, but it was as fast as you see somebody driving. They did not stop at that stop sign. They went straight down it and they gathered all kinds of speed. I understand the concern about noise, Mr. Waldner's concern, and that's well taken. But these are folks that are actually volunteering to allow this right in front of their house, not 27 yards or 80 feet, 81 feet. And it's pretty overwhelming, the people on your block that want this. And so I'm in favor of this as well, too. I think it should happen. We'll see how it goes. Hopefully it'll bring speeds down. And I think you're right. It could, we've seen on Maria is when we did try the white lines, it did not slow down speeds. We reviewed it, and the average speeds at most went down 1 mile an hour. And that's just within the margin of error. And so we eventually had to close it off because it was getting so bad. This won't be closed off, but it will provide a physical impediment to people driving as fast as they want to drive. And these are residential streets. These are not collectors. These are not arteries, arterials. These are residential streets, and they should be treated exactly that way. And so I'm in favor of it. And I think we should go forward and vote for this. And it's clear from the residents that that's what they want. So I would make the motion to approve this motion for installation of speed cushions on the 800 block of North Lucia.
Second.
Okay. Is there any other discussion on this item? Is there anybody else that has raised their hand?
There is no one else on Zoom raising their hand at this time, and we have a couple of e-comments.
Okay. No more e-comments. Again, it was 22 to...
Yeah, 26 altogether, 22 support, 3 opposed, 1 neutral.
1 is neutral, okay. Okay, we're going to do a roll call vote here. Councilmember Kaladjarovich.
Aye.
Councilmember Obaji.
Aye.
Councilmember Barrett.
Aye.
And I myself. Motion passes 4-0.
Congratulations. Drive slow, Redondo.
Drive slow, Redondo, please. Okay, item N3, discussion and possible action regarding the 2024 4th of July events, including a city-sponsored event in King Harbor and a privately sponsored event, and firework display in the Riviera Village. So, Mr. Harding, Florida.
Thank you, Mr. Councilmember. So you may remember the past couple of years, we've done a variety of events. We've done 2 fireworks shows. One is city-based in the King Harbor, and another one was privately sponsored down off of Avenue I, which also included some music and a beer garden and a more public event. We also have the 4th of July 5K run, which has happened a couple years ago during the pandemic. It occurred on July 3rd because we had some concerns with our public safety staff being a little bit too spread thin between a run and fireworks shows. But last year, we were able to work with our public safety teams and public works teams to make sure that everything occurred back on the 4th of July. This year, what we're looking at is several events, actually. We're looking at the possibility of a barge-based fireworks show in King Harbor. And I'll back up a little bit. You might remember that last year we ran into some problems with the LA County Water Board instituting some new permit requirements, which forced us to cancel the fireworks show and go with a drone show. This year, we've worked very closely with our fire department and an environmental team to make sure that we can overcome any requirements that they ask of us. We're very confident that we can acquire that a permit and conduct a barge-based fireworks show. It's been a challenge to find a fireworks vendor that will do that, but we're confident that we found one. So tonight, what we're our Deputy Director, Kelly Orta, is here tonight. She'll be doing the presentation, and we'll walk you through what we're recommending tonight, which is to work with the privately sponsored show off of Avenue I, work with the privately sponsored 5K traditional run that's been going on for years and years, work with our new fireworks vendor to do a barge-based show, and also to conduct a new event in Dominguez Park, which you approved as part of this year's budget, to do that event as well. So with that, I'll turn it over to our Deputy Director, Kelly Orta, and she'll walk you through the presentation.
So good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and City Council. I do have a presentation to display. Thank you. So Cameron definitely gave you a really brief overview of kind of where we're at this for tonight. So I'll kind of skim through some of the information here because it is a lot of information on here. I certainly won't read all of it, but as Cameron mentioned, in May 2022 is when the State Water Board instituted a new permit, which was basically requiring some very strict guidelines for water-based and fireworks discharge sites near the ocean. And so as a result, last year in 2023, we did actually host our 5K run, which went as planned. The Riviera Village event, that component, the land-based component went as planned, but the fireworks, of course, was canceled as a result of the permit requirements. Seaside Lagoon was open for regular operations, did have some additional amenities as we talked about last year. And again, our fireworks display for the city was canceled. We did have our drone show from Sky Elements at a cost of $65,000, and we'll talk a little bit more about what they can provide this year should the council want to move in that direction. So for 2024, essentially here tonight, we're looking for some input and direction from the council on 2 separate options for the fireworks component from the city's behalf. So this would be for the city's firework production for the community. Should the city council want to move forward with a fireworks show, we are recommending moving forward with Garden State Fireworks. It is a reputable fireworks vendor based out of New Jersey, so a little bit away from California, but they do have experience both in California as well as doing larger events and firework displays. So we are confident in their ability to produce the show. As a second component to that, because of the new permit requirements from the Water Board, we are also recommending the additional agreement with Pi Environmental. And this company would essentially assist the city directly in applying for the permit through the Water Board. They would also help with anything pre and post event reporting. They would also be on site, as well as do all of the reporting after the event in response for the permit guidelines. So they essentially would be a liaison between the city and the Water Board and make sure that we remain compliant, especially because this would be the city's first year going through this process. This company, I do just on an aside want to mention, this was the company that the City of Manhattan Beach recently used for their fireworks show, and that event went on well, and they were happy with their collaboration with Pi Environmental. So as the second option, if the City Council would desire to move forward with a drone show, we do have a proposal attached to the report from Sky Elements. And they do list in their proposal a number of different options for drones, which is basically the number of drones that are used. And we'll go into that in a little more detail here, actually. For the fireworks show, this is essentially an all-in price would be about $119,171. And that would include the cost for Garden State Fireworks, the cost of the barge, the permit, which is the one for the Water Board, the contract with Pi Environmental, and then the estimated cost for the moorings, which is required, obviously, for the use of the barge. The second option for the drones, you can see the different options there, ranging between 100 and 300 drones, and ranging in cost from $30,000 to $120,000. And just for your knowledge, the 200 drones is the one that was utilized by the city for last year's show. The city did receive a reduced rate last year of $65,000, but the normal rate, which would be the one we would be charged this year should we move forward, is $80,000. So this is just a very brief overview of what we are looking for direction from the council on, and the next slide after this will kind of piece it out even a little bit better. But just so you can see, if we pulled away the fireworks component, these would be the 4 other elements and events that would take place on the 4th of July holiday. We would have the 5K run, the Riviera event, and potential fireworks show. I do want to mention we have not received the formal application for the Riviera Village event and the fireworks show. So we have been in constant communication with the event producers. So we're pretty confident that the event will be very similar as in past years. The fireworks component is still a bit up in the air, but we're certainly committed to working with them should they move in that direction. Another component would be for Seaside Lagoon, and we would plan to have it open for regular hours from 12 to 10. The gates would be general admission would be from 12 to 8:30, and we would restrict water access at 7:30. Then we would open the gates at 8:30 for anyone from the community who wishes to view the fireworks from the lagoon. And then the last component would be Dominguez Park, and I'm sure you'll remember, $20,000 was allocated in this year's fiscal budget for that event. And we just listed some kind of our preliminary thoughts on different activities and events that can be at that event, including tours of the Morrell House and the museum, music, food, and other things. And staff will continue coordinating and piecing that event together as we continue to move forward. So for the recommendations, kind of broke this up into two pieces. The first portion is that the City Council approves the 4th of July 5K run, the Riviera Village event, and potential fireworks show, and then the preliminary event details for Dominguez Park community event. And then the second component is for the City Council to provide direction on whether you prefer a barge-based fireworks show or a drone show. If it's a fireworks show, we are asking for further direction authorization to contract with Garden State Fireworks and Pi Environmental for the fireworks component, and then also direction on how the city should apply for the permit with the water board. Essentially, the city could, should the council desire us to, we could apply for the water permit and essentially apply the Avenue I fireworks component as part of the city's permit. There are liability concerns associated with that. The city would take on the liability of that fireworks show, but it is possible to lump them under the same permit. Or we could apply separately and require any fireworks show outside of the city to apply for their own singular permit. And then lastly, if it is a drone, we do just ask for direction on the number of drones that you would like us to move forward with. So that concludes our presentation. I do just want to end it that we do have representatives from Garden State Fireworks as well as Pi Environmental here on Zoom. So if there are some technical questions or questions with the proposals, they are happy to answer those for you tonight.
And I've got a couple additional comments if I could, Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you, Kelly and Cameron, for the work on this. It's been a long time coming, a lot of calls, scrambling to find a vendor. We're grateful that Garden State has stepped forward and shown a willingness to produce the show for us. I did get a text from Councilmember Narenheim. He's not going to make it back for the meeting tonight. He did want me to articulate at the right time some of his sentiments on this. He's been in dialogue with both Cameron and the Riviera Village event producers about what's happening there, and he has some specific thoughts on what he would like to see the city do. I'll just carry those on for you. They happen to align with our recommendations on this issue as well. Generally speaking, we suggest that we support all the events that have been laid out here tonight in each of these different categories. The one real area that we need to sort of drill in on is, are we comfortable moving forward with the barge-based show? Clearly, the cost of the show this year significantly higher than they have been in years past. No question about that. I think that's due to a couple of things. Inflation, one, and the additional environmental requirements, two. But there's no debating that fireworks this year are much more expensive than they have been in the past. It should be noted that Tidelets funding is usually what's used to pay for these fireworks. It is an eligible expense given its location and its benefit to the local area. We don't have money in the budget currently for the fireworks show. We typically bring back a budget resolution with the specific amount following all of the costing and appropriate the money then. That would require a 4/5 budget modification, so keep that in mind. And then lastly, it comes down to, do we pull an environmental permit that covers only the show in the harbor area, or do we pull a permit that also potentially covers both the shows in Redondo Beach waters, the harbor, and then the show ultimately sponsored and paid for by Riviera Village and its patrons? Our recommendation, assuming the village does proceed with a fireworks show and opt to pay the required amount, that we would unify under a single permit that we would cover. Now, the two stipulations we would have with that is that A, they cover their share of environmental cost and permit costs, so we share in those expenses and ultimately defray some of the city costs associated with that effort. And two, that they contract with a certified and a reputable fireworks company that can produce the show that we feel would happen in a safe and secure environment. At this point, the only vendor we've identified that could do that for them would be Garden State. I don't know if there are any other vendors out there that they've been talking to that would be qualified under this. That would ultimately be at the fire chief and fire marshal's discretion. And I would like to say thank you to Pat and Brian Regan, who have worked very hard on this. You can hear from them later. They really are the experts on the NPDES permit requirements and the work that PI Environmental will have to provide to ensure safety and address any liability concerns here. So we would suggest and support ultimately covering the permit application on behalf of both parties, but we would recommend that the council ask and demand that they comply with the safety and security requirements, vendor requirements, and pay their fair share of environmental costs associated with the activity. And I believe ultimately that's Councilman Narenheim's hope as well, based on his feelings on this matter.
If we do the latter, we would have more liability exposure with respect to the
environmental component. To the environmental
component only.
To the environmental component only. Ultimately, we do issue a fireworks permit for the activity. So as we do anything that occurs in the city, there is some.
Any idea what that potential exposure is, the environmental component, if we bring in the permit together with Riviera Village?
I'd probably rather have PI Environmental maybe answer that question for you. And I believe he's here. And perhaps Pat can address that initially as well. He's done the most research and work with the Regional Water Quality Control Board staff to understand the NPDES permit regulations. If you could, Pat. He's online.
Good evening, council members, Mayor Pro Tem, Interim Fire Chief Patrick Butler. The liability piece is really about the environmental impact, and that's the permit that we would adopt to have both shows under. So an example would be if one of the shows had somehow contaminated or didn't catch the fallout or something that we could be cited against, that we would assume that liability. Now, the benefit of having the consultant is this is their expertise, and they already have a track record with providing these services. They did a big show in Manhattan Beach, but yes, to your point, we would own the liability on the environmental impact.
What's the upside of applying for a permit that covers both the city and Riviera Village?
I think the upside would be, I looked at it, I mean, I don't think the price is a big deal. It's $3,500, but the upside is that if we could leverage, I'll give you an example, maybe the same vendor to work with us on these two pieces, maybe working with PI. So there might be some way that we could defray some costs. So, and also it's a community that's representative of our city. So that's kind of the way I look at it. We could share it, or you could bifurcate and make it completely separate. But I think in the spirit of all the events that you guys talked about, I think it would be a good way to move forward. And it would also give us a little more control as a city, and as the fire chief or the fire marshal. I'd rather have a kind of a single point role and contact with ensuring that all these events that happen in our city are properly coordinated through my office and the fire marshal.
That's your preference and
That's my
recommendation
preference.
as the
Yes,
interim
sir.
fire chief of the city of Redondo Beach?
Yes, sir. My preference is to coordinate them together, yes.
And apply for a permit on behalf of both the city and the Riviera Village show?
I think that would be more of the city manager, but I think from a public safety perspective, I would feel more comfortable being able to operate under one permit where I could come in and Chief Regan could come in and say, hey, this needs to be done, this needs to be done. And I think also if we put enough language in the contracts that we also have the, basically the right to weigh in and say, no, that's not what we want to do there. I think it's just better all around for public safety. And it would give me a lot more control and guidance over both shows.
Question for you.
Yes, sir.
Is it possible that we could separate out, have a separate permit and tell them they have to use a vendor, specific vendor for a permit during a permit?
They could.
Liability would not be ours anymore, but we would have the advantages of what you're talking about?
Yeah. So what they could do is you could have two different shows, two complete permit processes. And then at that point, if it's still somehow under a quasi-city event, we can, as the fire marshal, look to see what vendor they're going to use, because that's another piece that's important. So,
But we couldn't mandate they use a particular vendor?
It gets a little bit, I mean, at the end of the day, the waters aren't in our direct control. If they did a barge-based show,
Yeah.
we don't have direct jurisdiction over that. Now, all that a
County?
that actually,
State,
I think it becomes a state factor.
Yeah, it's Tidelands.
And then the other issue there is, again, this is a matter of cost more than it is perhaps liability concern, but you've got two $3,500 MPDS permit fees, and you've got two separate environmental consulting contracts as opposed to one shared format. So somebody's paying more money in that scenario, whether it's us or it's Riviera Village. At the end of the day, perhaps not our biggest concern. So that's really the pro and con. One permit defrays some cost, gives us a little bit more control, as Pat mentioned, but it does incur on the city's behalf the environmental responsibility associated with the event. Just to be clear, the environmental risk here, how that would work with the board is fireworks show goes off. There are requirements on how we're monitoring and reporting the events of the show, how we're collecting debris, et cetera. If that were done improperly, the board would then have the opportunity to issue us a notice of violation. We would then have to report and address whatever is a concern. There might be a scenario where we're able to further defray cost in that event against the event operator. It's not to say that we would necessarily be subject to the fine that would be paid. We might be able to require that the special event group down at the village pay that cost.
So we could add the Riviera Village event onto our permit.
Yeah.
And then say you need to use this vendor, Garden State, as well. So.
yes, and those would be the discussions that I would engage in. I think the other part to that is we're going to have to issue a fireworks permit anyhow. I feel more comfortable if the city's, it's a private company, but we're going to issue a permit. I like to just have one vendor, issue one permit, look at both sites. And myself and the fire marshal, we plan on going down, if you approve this, we plan on going down to Long Beach and inspecting the fireworks before they load them on, look at the manifest, then that barge gets moved to our coastline, and then we would inspect it again to ensure that what left arrived, and then also what the safety parameters are.
Should be noted, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Cameron, and the rep could do this as well, but Garden State, I believe, is scheduled to host the event in LA Harbor on July 3rd. Is that right? Or do they have another event in the area near? Okay.
I think I'd heard that as well.
Yeah. I don't know if that's true. I'm sure they could confirm.
And I'm sure that the representatives that are on the Zoom or listening could probably provide some more context to what I said.
Okay.
And you're comfortable with Garden State as a responsible and safe partner in this endeavor?
Yes, I am. My fire marshal checked with the state fire marshal's office, and Garden State has no bad marks against them from the state fire marshal's office. And obviously, they're not going to be allowed to do a show unless we approve it and it meets all the safety requirements.
Okay.
Okay. Councilmember Abaji?
The proposal was for $130,000 for two barges. That's what they proposed, and we just said, okay, we'll take one barge?
That's, just to be clear, it says barge, but that's a barge-based fireworks display. So there's a separate barge proposal that's $38,000, which is for the actual floating barge.
Right, okay, and they said that.
Yeah, so I think
excluded
what,
barge and water.
correct me if I'm wrong, and again, we've got Garden State here, we can ask them, but I think they're saying they would quote the same price for Riviera Village.
Okay.
Two $65,000 shows. Maybe comparable. Yeah.
Have they, has the Riviera Village indicated interest in doing a fireworks show this year?
They have, and I think we have Joan here to speak to that on behalf of the village, correct? Yeah.
All right, that's it. I'd favor moving forward.
Okay,
Well, actually, last question, sorry. How much money is in the Tidelands Fund? Do we know approximately?
Well, that's a kind of a moving target depending on how much CIP spending we've done right now. I believe our fund balance estimate at year end was upwards of $1 million, but it's dependent on actual performance this year. I think Greg was looking at that today. I believe it was trending above projections, but we haven't generally, although we haven't budgeted for it, we have anticipated this expenditure as occurring. It is an annual expense in the fund.
Thank you.
But one of the things that does, people do take into account is they do frequent the Portofino and other hotels in anticipation of this, which increases the money that is brought into the harbor.
No question, and as we've
enterprises funds.
and Councilmember Lowenstein knows this, as many of you do, as we've contemplated relocating the event or having a single event somewhere over coastal waters outside the harbor, we've received pushback from harbor businesses. Every time we've sort of flirted with the concept of relocating the event, we've come right back to the harbor due to pressure. So both from our residents who prefer the centralized location as well as our businesses.
We've been down this path.
Oh, we've almost virtually every year, it feels like.
Yeah. Okay, I have two cards, Jonah Irvine to speak, and then Lee Keller. So, Jonah.
Joan Irvine here on behalf of Keep the Esplanade Beautiful. I must say, you keep on saying Riviera Village. It is Keep the Esplanade Beautiful, a 501c3 charity that puts on this event. The Riviera Village benefits from it, and we hope that they're going to be a sponsor, because you were talking about in the harbor, the business is complaining because it's not there. I just want to know, the tradition of the 4th of July fireworks off the Esplanade dates back to 2000. Preceding the Chamber Cities event at the Seaside Lagoon that only began in 2005. In 2016, faced with the loss of the beloved tradition, followed by the passing of the original founder of the Rat Beach fireworks, Jeff Ginsburg, now president of Keep the Esplanade Beautiful, recognized the significance of the fireworks. To preserve this tradition for the thousands of residents who hold their 4th of July celebration dear, Jeff brought it under the umbrella of KEB, Keep the Esplanade Beautiful, an organization dedicated to community outreach for the betterment of the Esplanade. Currently, we are in the process, as has been mentioned, we're talking to everybody, and we're in the process of finalizing an event organizer, a fireworks company. However, being a small charity, we acknowledge that our pace may not match what the city would like, but we're working it. We're really trying to work it. As they mentioned, the cost is over $100,000, and we're going to be reaching out to the community and to corporations. So we're only a small portion of the funding will come from sponsorships. So we're going to be asking the tens of thousands of people who have ever enjoyed the fireworks to help. We've set up a GoFundMe campaign. Information will be soon on the Keep the Esplanade Beautiful Facebook page and our website, keeptheesplanadebeautiful.org. We're asking anyone and everyone to contribute and share the campaign through your email list and on social media. Small contributions of $5, $10, and $20 will make a big difference in covering the cost. Your support will ensure that this time-honored, beloved tradition will continue in the future. The event is also a fundraiser to support, so it's not just the event, it's also a fundraiser to support the KEB operational cost and various programs. For instance, we are launching a scholarship program aimed at graduating Redondo Union High School students focusing on environmental studies in their further education. For further information, please contact me at joan@joanirvineconsulting.com. Thank you for your time, and as we often say, it takes a village. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Lee Keller, and then after Lee, anybody else would like to speak to this item?
We do have Steve Jeffries from Garden State on. We should probably give them an opportunity.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Lee Collar, District 3, also a voter in King Harbor. Speaking on behalf of myself this time. Want to speak in favor of fireworks in the harbor, not a drone show. Reasons being, number one, it's 4th of July, fireworks, that's our tradition. I grew up that way, I'm sure we all grew up that way. Number two, drone shows are only visible from certain directions. Fireworks, 360. You can have people, if it's nice and calm, out there on the water, beyond the harbor actually watching these things. It brings in revenue to the hotels. That's really all I have to say. I just want to speak out in support of the fireworks.
Thank you. I have Mr. Abaji, did you want to speak again?
Nothing else.
Okay, Councilmember Kalijardovich.
I read that for the permit, the $3,500 is, the permit is good for 5 years if it were in good standing. So, I mean, I think that's great that we'll only have to do this once. If the direction is that we are going to join with Keep the Esplanade Beautiful on this, you know, I think, can we separate it year by year to see how things go?
Sure. I mean, yeah, we could
Would be
apply
like
for
a
the.
5-year deal that we're signing
Yeah, I
in
think what we would do is we'd apply for a 5-year global permit that would give us that mass discretion. But if we had any discomfort with the
How
dual
things went.
shows in the future, we would then just allow only our show to occur under that scenario.
Okay.
We would have that discretion.
Okay, that was my question.
Okay, thank you. Steve from Garden State, would you like to speak to the council related to the fireworks show?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, and appreciate your all's time. A little background real quick for the council to know a little bit about us. Garden State Fireworks is one of the older companies in the industry. We have been in business since 1890. We are also the only company in California that's currently operating that is a manufacturing company and have been for over 100 years. So I personally have been in the industry. This is my 40th year and most likely my last. But I have worked for multiple other companies, including the company that I believe were the ones that did your show in the past, PyroSpec. I worked for them for 26 years. So I've been around for a minute. One of the things that I've heard the conversation about that I might be able to help relieve some of the worries, this environmental permit that has become the newest thing is actually, unfortunately, it does have cost involved, but it's actually become very beneficial to everybody in the industry, including the cities that are putting on these shows. Because over the last 15 years, we've had an entity that goes up and down the coast trying to sue all the different cities doing shows on the water because they're convinced that somehow we're polluting the water. We've been working with these water testing. Matter of fact, we worked with Pi for, I don't know how many years now. I know it's well over 10. And we have never had a single violation of any kind since they installed this water permit the last couple of years. We are one of the only companies that are still willing to do the shows on the water. One of the things that helps us with that, and the reason why we get along well with the water board, is because we are one of the most environmental friendly companies out there. We don't use any plastic shell casings on our shells, and 98% of what we use is biodegradable that would have any chance of contact with the water. And we do every effort we can to make sure that we limit the amount that goes in the water. We've been doing all of the shows for the city of Long Beach for, I want to say, probably over the last 10 years, including Queen Mary, the city of Long Beach, as well as some private entities that have done shows there in the past. We have to pull these permits with the water board on every show. We also, along with the environmental company, we also assist with the permit process. One of the things they're going to ask you for is some BMPs, which are best management practices, that we have already worked very diligently and put together that help save a lot of the time that involves the city in these permits. But the other thing that I want on to the board know is that this water testing has been going on for approximately 15 years, starting down in San Diego. We just had a case, which is the cause of this new permit, in federal court over the people that were trying to sue one of our clients. And one of the questions that was asked during federal court of all this water testing was for them to show one water test out of all these years of doing it that has shown that we impact the ocean in a negative way, in any way, shape, or form. And they were not able to present that because they've never been able to prove that. So we do our due diligence to protect it. I've scuba dived all my life, so the ocean is a very important place to me as well as to our company. And so we do everything we can to respect it. We have a very long list of clients as far as these barge shows. We do boat shows for Catalina Island, have for the last 2 years, and they have no interest in going elsewhere. along with, like I said, the city of Long Beach. We have many references over there as well. So I can assure you that this show is done as safely as it can possibly be done, and that the impact to the ocean is as minor as we can possibly make it.
Okay, thank you. If this is your last year, you're truly going out with a bang.
Won't be my last show, but hopefully my last year. 40 years is a pretty nice round number.
Okay. Would anybody else like to speak to this item?
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. I'd like to piggyback what Mr. Kohler said too. I think the drone show would be a second option. We did it last year just because there was nothing else. It was okay, but I was up the street. It wasn't that impressive. I think having a fireworks barge, and also I'd like to support some type of barge activity off of the avenues. I think it's always been a good draw for the city and help out the businesses. But I do have one grave concern, and I use that term very gravely. Partnering with any group, they should have experience. With all due deference to Ms. Irvine, Keep the SML Beautiful has never done anything of this size. We're talking, what, $80,000, $100,000? Nonprofits should have some experience with it. And there's been concerns over the years with money they raise, thousands of dollars or whatever their fundraisers are for plastic bags, but then we never know where the money goes. I think, and to add to the fact, the treasurer of the group appears on a regular podcast of a person who's currently under investigation by the FPPC for misappropriating campaign funds for her own personal use to send her son to a baseball camp in Cooperstown. I would think that if the city is going to partner with any group, whether it be a nonprofit, that they do have some kind of financial disclosure so that there is full transparency where all the money is going. That's a big concern, especially for a group that has no experience at all. Their treasurer has no experience with anything of this nature. And I say that because I am experienced. I've done this. I've been a treasurer for a nonprofit for about 7 years. Every quarter, every 6 months, we have to do public disclosures, which we just did a few weeks ago, or a week ago. I have some concerns with the city getting involved in that, as I think you should too. If you are going to do that, ask for public disclosures or some kind of financial disclosure that should be posted. Now, by law, if they think of the number, if I'm not mistaken, 15,000 or 20,000 a year, they're supposed to provide IRS documents to that effect. Anyway, I think before we get that along that far down the line, please encourage some kind of financial disclosure. Thank you.
I believe that nonprofits have to file Form 941 with the IRS.
If they're over a certain amount.
If they're over a certain amount. Okay. Great. Anybody else have any comments on this? Like to entertain a motion?
I do have some comments
Sure,
and questions. For the Dominguez Park celebration, that was part of the budget motion brought by Councilman Obaji. Did you have something specific in mind? Does this meet what you were?
Sure, they have a band, they have the fire department band, fire association band, and this looks, they've done game booths and face painting. Last year I went to the Seaside Lagoon, their face painting was phenomenal, actually. Game booths, don't know what they have in mind, but I'm sure they'll be good. So yeah, I'm sure the community services department can do this. Well,
No, I'm sure they can do this. I just want to make sure. Yes.
It'll be of appeal, it'll be cool, I
The
think.
reason I bring it up is I would want the money to be well spent and that it would be well attended. And I'm just curious if that time frame, 10 to 2 on 4th of July, is going to be something that is going to get the draw and people excited.
That is a good question. So I didn't see the time frame there, and is that a time frame you all chose because that's the only one that you could
Staff,
yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
I'll let Kelly elaborate on a little bit more, but yeah, the $20,000 only goes so far. I mean, it really, we're not budgeted and staffing for this, so a lot of that is going to staffing. The rest is obviously left over for any entertainment needs, but yeah, I'll let Kelly elaborate a little bit more on that.
Yeah, in addition to the cost of staffing, there's also the concern that we also are going to have Seaside Lagoon open during that time, and that's a lot of our part-time staff, our lifeguards. So it's splitting their time, also knowing that they potentially are going to be working into the evening. If there's a fireworks show, they're going to be working later. So that's longer hours for them, which means we need to pull from our other staff resources. So we tried to choose a time that had the lesser gap or overlap, if you will, of when Seaside Lagoon would open, which is noon, and then when this event could potentially happen, so that we limit our double dipping on our staff resources.
Don't get me wrong, I'd love to have a celebration in my district.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
it's a
no,
great
I agree.
idea.
I think you bring
I'm
up a
just
good
wondering,
point. I think you bring up a good point. I'd be okay with nixing the Dominguez Park event if it's spreading.
or, I mean, are we, I know last year there was a birthday celebration for the city of Redondo in April, and I'm sorry, I don't remember the date, but
April 29th.
are we doing that this year?
We have nothing in the works yet, but we certainly can. I mean, the resources on that are fairly minimal. I mean, we don't have anything in the budget, but I think we were able to make some wiggle room out of that. I don't know if you know anything further on that, but yeah.
Well, another, just throwing this out there, I have been communicating with Shakespeare by the Sea to nail down some dates for performances here in Redondo Beach. And we have tentatively thrown out dates for July 13th, which is a Saturday. And we would love to have it at Dominguez Park. If that comes into maybe be a bigger event, if we have some money that we want to pivot to something else, it might be just a better use of staff time and maybe better attended.
I imagine are we paying overtime rates to people to work on the 4th of July if they come to Dominguez Park?
Part-timers aren't eligible for overtime pay. It'd just be hours worked.
But yeah, I'm open to that too, is saving the money, doing a Dominguez Park event, just not on the 4th of July
We
when,
we can discuss it at a different item, or bring it back for something else.
It's certainly a challenge for us because a lot of the same staff, like Kelly mentioned before, are also our summer camp staff and our Seaside Lagoon staff. So they're already spread pretty thin. 4th of July is a holiday, so they're not working summer camps that day, but it certainly spreads us very thin. Hiring and staff retention for us, particularly for that staff, has been a real challenge for us. So, it's really kind of stretching us to the max there. We can do our best. The other thing we'd probably want to look at is to make sure whether or not that 4th of July and the 13th lands in the same pay period, because that would make a big difference for us, because as the city manager mentioned, they're not eligible for overtime. So there's several different factors we'd want to consider before making a commitment to you to do an event like that.
Yeah.
But if that is the will of the council to maybe redirect these funds, we would like that direction sooner rather than later, so we don't invest much more time in planning this event.
For sure. Well, and what I'm hearing from staff is that this Dominguez 4th of July celebration is stretching you.
Yes. we are, I mean, between the between the 5 events, we are at capacity for sure. And the only way we're able to accommodate all of this even conceptually is because we've made changes to how we staff the 5K event in the morning. We've gotten more efficient. We're working with our partner down there in a different way. It hasn't taxed our resources the way it used to. So had we not made those adjustments, we would probably be having a different conversation about tonight. So,
I mean, I would be happy to say that this Dominguez Park celebration, while it would be in District 3, would be great, but I don't know that it would be as well attended, especially given all that's going on that day elsewhere in the city. So,
yeah. All right, so I would support a motion to do everything else and keep this $20,000 allocated for an event, not on July 4th, someday in the future, in North Redondo, at a North Redondo Park, be it Dominguez, Perry, Anderson, what have you, that.
trying to, wait, are you moving it
No,
to
not moving it,
District 4?
fine. Dominguez
Wait a
Park is,
second.
you can stay at Dominguez Park, but I agree with you that 10 to 2 could be, not exactly long enough to be a huge draw when there's so much else going on July 4th. So, yeah, good catch.
Is there a second?
I would second that.
All right.
What about Zoom? Are there people on Zoom?
We have one person with their hand raised. You may begin speaking.
Good evening, City Council, City Staff, Mark Hansen, King Harbor voter. I
I want to rise tonight in favor of the fireworks versus the drones. For many, many years, I've watched the fireworks from the north end of the harbor. Last year, my wife and I walked down to the area of the drone show. As we did so, it occurred to me that the drone show probably causes a little more driving traffic because it's you have to get a lot closer to view it, and of course you have to be at the correct angle. In fact, I was there in a big crowd in the parking lot, and we all started walking through the parked cars to get closer to the show. It was interesting. It was well done. It was customized to Redondo Beach, but it just didn't have the celebratory feel that fireworks have. I can see where it works great in a stadium where you can pack a lot of people in shoulder to watch it, but I just don't think it's as appropriate for Redondo's long north-south viewing area. I trust the fire chief, the city manager, and the vendor that they can do this in an environmentally responsible manner. Somebody mentioned the hotels, and I've talked to them over the years, and I really had a sense that last year the drone show just would not be anywhere near as visible and as big of an attraction for the hotels. Also, comparing the costs, I think if you were going to try to do anything equivalent, you'd need to do the 300 drone show for 120K. So really the costs are equivalent there. So that being said, I rise in favor of the fireworks versus the drones. Thank you very much.
Okay, anybody else on Zoom?
If anyone else wishes to speak at this time, please raise your hand. Mayor Pro Tem, we have no more hands raised, and we do have one neutral comment on our e-comment section.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, so there's a motion on the floor, and the second I'll do a roll call.
Let me clarify it, just because we didn't go through all the detail here that the staff had. So if you could light up 2B, please. Let me just pull up. All right, function F11. So the motion is to approve the following 4th of July events, including the 5K 4th of July run. Mr. Ginsburg event on Avenue I and potential fireworks show, assuming they pay their pro rata share for the environmental and any other costs associated
Permit,
with those shares.
environmental, and this.
Approve one permit being shared, obviously under the purview of our fire department, fire chief and division chief. And
then if I could add one thing, subject to the fact that they properly fundraise and are able to procure a contract with the vendor to ultimately
that's
provide the
implicit.
show. If those funds don't materialize, we're not going to provide a single contract with Garden State to provide the two shows. That contract's going to be between the not-for-profit and Garden State.
Right, thank you for that. And we'll nix the Dominguez Park daytime community event, maybe with direction to staff to see, if you could come up with an idea for a weekend or time for some event at Dominguez Park in the summertime. And
Reserving the funds for future
reserving the
use.
funds, yeah, reserving the funds for future use. And barge-based fireworks show
With Garden State.
with Garden State. And at those rates, fireworks 65,000, barge 38,171, not including the cost for moorings. And authorization to contract the services of PI Environmental for 7,500 to assist the city in the NPEDS permit and require reporting for the fireworks display. Second?
Is that a second?
Yes, second, with the understanding that the approval is just for this year for the Mr. Ginsburg event.
Right, we'll apply for a 5-year permit, but we'll retain the discretion to administer, yeah. And I think even though we will have a 5-year coverage, we're probably having subsequent applications with the board to verify anyway, so.
And any appropriation be brought back. For forfeit.
We'll probably be talking about this again this time next year.
Oh,
maybe a little bit earlier.
Is the city attorney here for a reason?
Just enjoy it.
He's hiding there.
Okay, so we have the motion clear, everybody?
Yes, and the second.
Okay, and the second is there. So we'll do a roll call vote now. Councilmember Kaljurevich.
Aye.
Councilmember Abaji.
Aye.
Councilmember Barrett.
Aye.
And I myself. Motion passes 4-0. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, 2 more items. Item N4, Discussion of possible action regarding the implementation of a fire department emergency medical services first responder fee and direction to initiate an agreement with Whitman Enterprises LLC for billing.
Before we do, could we make a motion for an 8-minute break?
Second. Stretch break.
Okay.
Chief just got up.
I don't know how we came up with 8 minutes, but 8 minutes can be it. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we will be back here at 8:42 on the dot.
Councilmember Narenheim is absent. Councilmember Kalogerovich? Here. Councilmember Obaji? Here. Councilmember Barron?
Here.
And Mayor Brand is absent. Mayor Pro Tem Lowenstein.
Here, thank you. On to N4, discussion possible action regarding the implementation of a fire department emergency medical services first responder fee, et cetera, et cetera. Direction to initiate an agreement with Whitman Enterprises. Interim Chief Pat Butler.
Yes, sir. Good evening, Councilmember Tim, Interim Fire Chief Patrick Butler. I'm here to kind of go over the EMS first responder fee that was approved back in June. And actually, the fee's actually been part of the city. It predates probably some of us, at least me, started in 2010. At our meeting in June, part of the direction was to come back with some guidelines on how to implement the fee for the services. And that would include to have a compassionate billing clause, to look at what companies provide this type of service, and so forth. So we're here in February and you know, you might wonder why it took so long. One of the challenges was there's really only one billing company in the state regionally that does this. It's Whitman. And it took us a couple months to get an appointment with them. Once we started getting some draft language and some background and checking with other cities, an assembly bill was going through the legislative process, and it was AB 716, which had to do with EMS collection fees. So it kind of put us on pause to figure out, was this new legislation going to impact us? After some work with some legislative contacts at the state, it turns out that this new legislation will not impact us because we do not provide ground-based ambulance transport. The recommendations from looking at the vendors and what other cities do is that we would charge a $313 fee for an EMS first responder fee. We have 6,000 patient contacts a year, and with that, we would be charging a fee that oftentimes is covered either through insurance or some type of policy and may not necessarily directly impact the patient. But the way this billing process would work, and what we recommend is that if we go on a call, we render first aid or an EMS medical intervention on a patient, that the patient would receive a notice from our consultant, our vendor Whitman, to say, please provide us some insurance information so we could bill your insurance. If that information came back that either the insurance didn't pay or didn't cover the full amount, then a secondary contact would be made to the patient to say, here's the difference in pay, or they didn't pay, or if there's some other type of resolution. And oftentimes, even in my own experience with my insurance, I have to kind of engage my insurance folks to say, hey, can you pay this bill because this is something that's under my premium. So we get the patient involved to some degree if there's a process for that. And then lastly, if not, then the patient's responsible for the $313. Now, if there's a hardship or the patient would like to have some type of payment plan, all those things are possible, and we would have full control over what this compassionate billing clause would look like, so that we do not, punish or have an extreme burden on someone who really just can't afford to do it. And so that would be deferred to the financial services director for the city to say, here's a fee, and we would use existing processes to either write off the fee or set some type of payment plan with them. It would be anticipated to generate about $935,000 annually. When we looked at the numbers, we took kind of a 50%. We do 6,000 calls a year. If we build 313, that would put you somewhere in the 2 million range. But we put a realistic lens on it to say probably that's not realistic. And so 50% collection rate was something that we kind of shot for. And in talking to our the draft agreement, the potential contract company, Whitman, they said that we were roughly within the same ballpark of what they had anticipated looking at our payer mix. And so for tonight, what I would recommend, or it's on the council, that we move forward with implementing our fee, and then you could put whatever guardrails you feel would be necessary to ensure that we're doing right by everybody.
Okay, thank you. I Brown acted with Councilmember Nierenheim, and he expressed some concern, and I actually understand his concern, that people will see something from Whitman on behalf of the city of Redondo Beach, and they will assume it's coming from the city of Redondo Beach that they have to pay it. There's no way around it. So a couple things. One is, I hate to do this because he's not here tonight, but I'd like to see if we can continue this discussion maybe to next week, because I'd like him to weigh in on it. And the other thing is that we be very explicit that people should go to their insurance companies to pay for this, because as I understand it is, somewhat customary for them to pay for things, pay this. I don't know how it works in, what was it, Newport, some other places where this is done?
Newport, there's about 23 other cities in the state, yes, sir.
Yeah. I'd like to see the language that they used. And I'd love for Councilmember Nierenheim to weigh in on this, because it is, it's a large item, not only for the budget, but for our residents. They do pay their taxes. As part of their taxes, the fire department is part of the services but I mean, it's up to the rest of the council, the pleasure of the rest of the council, but I would think it'd be nice for him to weigh in on it. So who would like to speak next to this item? Okay, Councilmember Abaji.
Sure. I definitely want to move forward with this at some point. I do, you bring up a good point, Mayor Pro Tem Lowenstein, in that here we have the contract with Whitman, but we don't have, I would love to see before we approve this, an actual sample of the bill that's going out. And to his point, actually indicate on it if they can do it custom for us. Provide this document to your insurer, or do not pay, provide to your insurer, at least the first one that goes out to them. That way it gets paid by the right person.
Yes, sir.
Because our residents are already paying for our fire department and, all the services that we get through the property taxes and the like, at least the 50% of homeowners, otherwise the renters are paying through their landlords. So I don't want to double bill them, and the target of this was the pocket that can pay, which is the insurance companies that provide coverage. So that's it. I just want, if we could bring this back with a sample bill that would go out, that women saying, hey, this is the actual first notice, and here's what the second notice would look like, or the third notice, whatever it is, so that we see it. Because otherwise, we implement this program, people get the shock when they get the first document, they go ballistic. Why are we all of a sudden having to pay for this out of our own pocket, and now we got to come back, and now we're playing defense rather than proactively scrutinizing this document before it goes out to begin with.
So perhaps maybe not next week, but it might take a little bit of time.
How long do you think, Chief, to get the draft sort of billing statements together, samples?
I could reach out, I could have it by the next meeting if you want to see a kind of what the bill would look like. In talking at Newport Beach, actually a resident actually didn't realize that it was actually a third party, because the third party does not appear on the bill at all.
Right.
The bill comes from the city of Redondo Beach, or the city of Newport. So the bill does not come from Whitman. In fact, the number you call, they may even answer Redondo Beach EMS billing, but they're not actually, so they're by the
Looks to me, it's a Redondo Beach letter.
Yes, and
all the more reason why we should
Yeah.
have a look at it.
Well, no, yeah,
Much
no,
like
no.
our licenses, right?
Yeah.
Right, pet licenses.
Everything we
Yeah,
provide.
I mean, and we would want it to be customized in a way that was clear to residents that this was a city function, but we're making also clear to them what the
Yeah,
process
so
is.
maybe if we could do it for 2 weeks out, that way they actually put some thought into the design or whatnot, and really take into consideration at least this direction that.
Do you want us to prepare the contract? Because this is not I don't believe this was reviewed by my office.
No, this isn't a contract. That's the next step.
Okay, but I'm saying if you want it, do you want it in conjunction or do you want this to come back?
Sure,
For
okay, that
billings and then, because it would still have to come back. This is just a sample contract
Sure.
that Whitman provided. And so it will take some time for us to do it. In particular, I'm envisioning we're going to try and put that language so it's a
It's binding.
it's
right.
binding that they have to put that in there. But it could be if you can, my question is, do you want to compartmentalize it? Let's see the bill first. That may make sense because we know what to put in there. But just know you're not going to be approving this in 2 weeks.
Okay, so let's do that. Let's hear from the other council members and then we'll make a motion, send it to the city attorney and come back.
To your point, City Attorney, is we weren't asking for, we would come back at a later date with a contract that could be fully discussed all over again.
Okay,
Well,
so
that's
this
the
is just an update?
Yeah, no, that's, I just
Initiate.
Well, there's 2 weeks. It's fine. I just want to be clear.
Councilmember Kaladjarovich had her hand up, and then I'll get to Councilmember
Yeah, I
Barron.
just have one question. Is it possible to include the administration cost of $17 a customer in the billing so it's $330 that gets billed? So we're not doing that?
We can do that, but we'll have to amend the master fee schedule. So we would have to increase the fee to $330, and then what we would say as part of that is a portion of that fee would be used to cover the per billing cost, which is $17. So we can do that, but we would need to do that through our fee schedule adjustment in June.
Okay, so maybe we can discuss that.
Yeah. It'd be nice to get, I mean, I'm hopeful if we can get the right formatting, get the contract done, that we're implementing this in this fiscal year so we can test this a little bit before the next budget cycle. There's no question we're going to need to make adjustments to the revenue projection. We're going to need to revise it downward at mid-year for sure, given the timing and the delay with the legislation. But we could absolutely address that fee change at that time in June.
Okay, Councilmember Barron.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Chief Butler, I've seen on some of the websites of fire districts, fire departments in cities that have used Whitman, they have a FAQ page, frequently asked question page, so that when folks do get this bill or invoice, we could direct them, or there should be, or maybe should be a direction or a website that they could look at and have their questions answered online. What is this fee? Why am I paying it? And then maybe some information about having insurance, pay it, et cetera. Have you seen that at all, those
Yeah,
web pages? And do you have any
absolutely.
opinions about whether that may or may not be a good idea?
Yes, sir. I think it's great because we could write the questions in a very practical way so people can understand what is this bill for? How would I pay it? What did it cover? Do my taxes cover this, et cetera? The cities that we spoke to, they actually have, to your point, they have on their website, if you receive a medical bill, click this link and it gives you all the FAQs, what's it for, et cetera, et cetera. So we would definitely have that, especially on the new website, a place where everyone can go and get the information firsthand. And so definitely there's going to be an education piece, and the FAQs is exactly what other cities use.
And then back during the budget season, fiscal year 2023 in June, I think you may have given an estimate of 6,000 of these calls per year. Was that the number?
That is correct, sir, yes.
And now that we're 7 months into the fiscal year, is that estimate holding up? Are you seeing more? Are you seeing less?
It's trending the same. My patient contacts is roughly about the same. We're right in the 7,000, 7,500 in calls, and about 6,000 of those are EMS. So it definitely is trending the same way right now, and it could change.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anybody in the public would like to speak to this item?
Mayor Pro Tem, I do have someone with their hand raised.
Okay, let's go to the public first here, and then we'll go to Zoom.
Okay, and then just for the record, I do not have any e-comments, but I do have a speaker that you may begin speaking. Holly Osborne.
Hang on, I'd like the people in the public first.
Oh, I'm sorry.
They have made the effort to come down here, so.
I have a question about.
Please speak to the council.
Oh, sorry. I have a question about the system itself from an automation perspective.
And could you
Oh, I'm
say your
sorry.
name again?
Austin Carmichael,
Thank you.
District 5.
Thank you.
Commissioner.
Commissioner.
Yes, thank you.
Yes. Commissioner Carmichael, District 5. I have a question about the billing system and its automations. So background for my question, I used to do EDI, which is basically you're the insurer, you're the insured, you log in and you say, hey, any billing can go directly to. So does this billing organization have something similar such that if I get something in the mail, when I open it, it just says log in and then you click a button for Aetna, you click a button for Blue Cross Blue Shield, and then it just automatically sends that bill there, minimizing any sort of, hey, do I pay this or do I not? So if they have any sort of automation like that, is that something that we've looked into in order to mitigate some of the things?
It's a great suggestion.
Right, and if so, right, it is.
Yeah.
If so, I have a sense that we allow folks to log on to like Redondo, whatever, to pay their different bills. If they have that automation, we just tell folks, log into your redondo.org that you automatically pay other things with. And then there's a button for them. And then they can just go there and then make that automatically put and take. So that's sort of my question to mitigate some of this, particularly for older folks who, if I get a bill, I got to pay it. But if they're so used to logging into a portal, then they're like, oh, let me log into the portal and do it that way, so forth and so on. And if they have an app, even better. My 2 cents.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's a great suggestion. One thing we could use is, I don't know if staff wants to look at this, what's called an API. Yes. An API could actually pull in the data from Whitman or whoever it is, and it would actually, they wouldn't even have to leave our website, or they could do it on the app to be able to do that, to be able to, but yes, I got what you were saying. I don't, if we can look into that, that would be great.
We can certainly look into that. That isn't probably just a Whitman issue either. It might have something to do with what we can do online through our own portal and our Munis financial system, which tends to be our big barrier to online payments for most things. But it's a great idea, and I don't know what Whitman's capacity is to link to that, but we can certainly look into it.
Yeah, as Munis has what's called an API, they should be able to do that. I don't know.
It's, in my experience with Munis, they should be able to do a lot of things that they really struggle to implement for us.
Yeah, I will look into that. The one area that makes it kind of tough is all of these things, anytime you deal with a patient, it has to be HIPAA compliant. And there's so many rules regarding how you can transmit patient information. So, but I will ask Whitman of what type of automation. It appears that they do a lot of phone calls and follow-up. So they have a lot of concierge type work. Because the bill first, because we have McCormick, so there is, if a person gets transported, we have another vendor who does the transporting. If we just do a treat and release, so we can look at all those things and see where we can automate, link them together.
Okay. Just real briefly, I did a quick search, and Munis, which is part of Tyler, has APIs. So they should be able to do it. We don't know if they will.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's, yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Should has been the operative word in my experience a lot.
Okay. Oh, I know we have somebody on Zoom.
Before we do, I just want to say Whitman Enterprises, that's the entity, right?
Yes, sir.
So it appears they do have something on their website where you could log in and pay your first responder fee. But the points raised were very good, which is how could we make that more seamless for us? Or, yeah.
Okay.
So.
That's good.
On
For the residents, us meaning the residents.
Holly Osborne, you may begin.
Hi, I've actually only called 911 once, and it was on the behalf of a neighbor, and this is over 20 years ago, the neighbor's not there anymore, who needed some, let's just say, medical assistance. And so if you came, this person was in no position would be in no position to pay for it. Am I on the hook because I called? Or is the neighbor on the hook who might have refused to call? And I just want to know how it works, and I can only talk from experience. If you call for somebody else, who pays?
The person who's serviced, I believe, would be.
The bill goes to, if we treat, the bill goes to the patient. Just like their medical insurance, if we took them to the hospital, it would follow the same processes.
Okay. Anybody else on Zoom?
There was no one else on Zoom, and there were no e-comments for this item.
Hey, Mr. Abaji, you had your hand raised.
Yes. So first, actually, let me say thank you, Chief Butler, because no fire chief before you ever proposed this cost recovery for the city of Redondo Beach. So thank you for making our services more efficient and helping get resources to our fire departments to continue to provide this excellent service. I'll make a motion to direct the fire department and city attorney's office to negotiate a contract with Whitman for EMS billing services, making clear in their letter, for their first letter to the residents, to turn the bill over to their insurer for payment. And eventually, when you come back to council, have the draft letters that would go out for the council. Request from Whitman that they provide a QR code or a PB, what?
API.
API that would link, as the commissioner said, them to have this bill paid directly to the insurance company.
Or to pay with Tyler Technologies.
Yeah, some sort of portal system. Yeah, we
QR
get
code
the
or rather than a link, that would be easier.
automated payment option.
And to Commissioner Barron's point, the FAQ, either page printed on the backside or else put on their website. That would be ideal also.
Okay, is there a second? Also, a second, okay, good. Any other motions or competing motions? Okay, anybody else would like to speak to this item? Okay.
I'm sorry, Mayor Pro Tem, someone just raised their hand to speak.
Okay.
Nancy Skiba, you may unmute yourself and begin speaking.
Thank you. I have a question. Is it possible they could have a sliding scale on this EMT's fee? Say, for example, based upon the amount of service they receive on the call, or based on some other things such as senior citizen or some person who's disabled? And also, again, what would be the service cost per visit?
The service cost would be $313 unless we implement the fee for collection, which is an additional $17. We're talking about a compassion clause. If people are disabled, senior citizens on fixed income, that they could, say that this would be a burden to them, and we could perhaps issue a compassion clause. So the sliding scale, we hadn't really thought about that. It might be a challenge. It might be tough.
Yeah, and the fee is based on, we aggregate, everything from EMS supplies, staffing hours, and everything. And $313 came out to be the fee that kind of we mark there. Some municipalities charge a lot more, but we felt that $313 covered basically all the expenses to a degree that would offset some of the costs.
It's not full cost recovery, for the record.
I would imagine not.
Do we need a particular direction as to either compassion guidelines or relieving, the debt at some point? If they're unable to pay.
Yeah, let's propose some guidelines and come back with those. It sounds like there's a general comfort here if we can check these boxes and bring it back. That's what today was about, and we'll try to identify a standard that's useful for us and sustainable. I don't want this to just be an arbitrary discretionary decision by our financial services staff. I want to create some clear guideposts that you're all comfortable with that would meet the criterion. So,
and based on our treasurer, currently we do have something in the Redondo Beach ordinance that talks about waivers for folks that may have special needs and whatnot. So it sounds like we have existing language already that
UUT, our utility user tax has an exemption definition, I think, in it in the ordinance. But yeah, we can look at that. That could be a standard we could draw from, or we could maybe pull a more modern federal standard or state, state Social Security type threshold.
Sounds good. Okay, so there's a motion on the floor in a second. We'll do, this is to bring it back. When are we talking about bringing it back?
When,
Yeah, we're going to have to see, I mean, we're going to need to work with Mike's office here, make sure we can get it back comfortably. It probably won't be 2 weeks. It's going to take a little more time than that.
Okay. Then we have a motion on the floor in a second. I'll do a roll call vote. Councilmember Kalajerovich.
Aye.
Councilmember Obaji.
Aye.
Councilmember Barrett.
Aye.
And I myself. Okay, motion passes 4-0.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. Okay, final item of the evening, N5, discussion of possible action. Community Development Director's approval of a 13th extension to the emergency coastal development permit issued for the temporary closure of the LA County Beach access ramp at Esplanade Avenue A. Sean Scully.
13th and last, I'm told, because we
Yeah,
received.
lucky 13.
Yeah, let's go.
So yes, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, members of the City Council, Sean Scully, Acting Community Development Director. So yes, this is our discussion item tonight, is our 13th emergency coastal development permit for the closure of the Avenue A ramp due to the safety concerns with the condition of the ramp. Per the ordinance, we bring the item here for discussion, oral and written report. When we do receive a coastal development permit application, then we don't need any further emergency coastal development permits. And after I issued the most recent emergency permit, this 13th one on January 19th, we had further discussions and dialogue, and LA County Beaches and Harbors was able to actually pull it all together and submit their application for a coastal development permit for the revised and redesigned access ramps this last Friday. So this should be our last coastal development permit, emergency one. And then we'll be coming back to the council for, it's a little interesting. What they're doing as a public agency is they're taking the role of lead agency for the environmental document. So they're working on that. We anticipate an initial study, mitigated negative declaration document. So we'll be coming back. We'll need a consultant on board to do some peer review of that document, as well as a reimbursement agreement for that. So that'll be coming back, but then the actual permit itself will be going to the Planning Commission.
And then the groundbreaking would be in fall, is
That's where we're hoping to head.
Which, a year completion? Give or take?
It's,
Year and a half.
that's what they've indicated in the past.
Okay.
So they have to get a permit also from Coastal Commission as well, because the plan calls for staging on the sand. So they'll have some follow-up work with them as well.
Got it. Okay, any questions within council? Anybody in public would like to speak to this item? Anybody on Zoom?
There is no one on Zoom and no e-comments at this time.
Okay, anybody like to make a motion?
Motion to receive and file 13th extension of emergency coastal development permit for the temporary closure of beach access ramp at Esplanade Avenue A to protect public safety.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we'll just do, all in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, motion passes 4-0. Okay, on to city manager items.
Yes, just a couple items tonight. Want to, much like several of you did, I'd like to extend my gratitude and thanks to our public works personnel and fire personnel over the weekend who have been doing an excellent job preparing for the storms that have hit our area, planning for storm drain clearouts, guarding locations that have been problematic in the past, generally ensuring that our residents are as dry as can be. And, with very limited, just a handful of incidents, we were quite successful over the last few days. So that isn't happenstance. Our folks prepare quite well, and they are out early and often to guard against those issues. So big thanks to Mike Klein, Mario Carranza, our Public Works manager who oversees our stormwater crews, and all of our Park Services staff who are out there cleaning up debris and keeping our drain lines clean. It's a team effort, and they'll be on it all week. Winds will come in later this week. They'll be picking up debris. Heavy palm fronds tend to fly around the city, so we'll stay busy, and I think it's going to be a busy couple of months ahead. These rains aren't going away anytime soon. So big kudos to them, and appreciate all of you recognizing that, as you all have. So that was the first thing. And then the other thing I was going to mention is I believe we have received and installed our last powder-coated and treated Redondo Beach Pier sail. So for those who have stared at our old iconic sails for the last 2 decades and watched them sort of rust slowly away. They should look nice and fresh. You might not recognize the new colors, but they are the original colors.
Red?
They're primary, basically. And so it's a little bit different than they've been, absent all the corrosion and rust. So they look sharp. Big thanks to Chris King, who's been out there.
Over the last 12 to 15 months, we've replaced the sails, the lighting, and the rails.
And the rails.
Wow.
Yeah, that's quite a bit of work out there. So
thank you. Kudos to Public Works and everything.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. On to mayor and council referrals. Councilmember Kalergirovich.
No, I have none, thank you.
Councilmember Obaji.
I'd love if Ted could get the Artesia train bridge painted before he retires.
Himself, personally.
One segment at a time. Yeah. Yeah, we're working on that. We are.
Are you guys? Okay, I just a little reminder, a little nudge.
Yeah, we are.
Squeaky wheel gets the grease.
I happened to drive down 190th Street and saw the Hawthorne Bridge. That one recently got painted. Yeah.
Oh, really?
It's blue. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Anything, just any paint.
Yeah. Got you.
Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Barrett.
None.
Okay, I have 2 brief ones. The first one of which is where we're on the status of sharing the cost of buses to go down to the.
Yeah, I mean, we talked to Lawndale early on. We were committed to providing, I think, a split. We were determining how many residents. I think we've realized we probably had more residents that we would be transporting than they did. So we'll pick those conversations back up. They got tabled when Metro delayed their determination. So I think we're still waiting, though, on a specific date of alignment selection. Maybe March, but that could easily push. So we'll keep tabs. But
why don't we just BYOB? Bring our own bus.
Yeah, and that may be what makes the most sense. And talking to Lawndale, it might turn out that way based on numbers.
BYOB. The other thing was we've had a number of people that have been parking on Anita Street between Francisca and PCH overnight, and there is no prohibition on parking officially there.
Correct, and you might remember that is inside of our approved parking zone. We have the capacity to add meters to those locations and could solve the problem very quickly.
Sounds like revenue.
Or we could put up a sign that says no parking between 1 and 6 a.m. Yeah.
We can certainly discuss those options.
Why don't we discuss those 2 things? And then the other thing was.
Second that.
Okay.
Referral?
Yes, that's referral. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Opposed? Okay. And then the second thing was, I understand that the parking lot at the Gateway Parkette is often full overnight, even though there is, I think, 4-hour parking only there.
Well, that's easy enough to follow up on.
And I understand it's Hermosa residents that are parking there. Many of them are overnight. And it's they're not being ticketed or anything, so.
Well, we'll certainly look at that.
Enforcement. So,
Yeah.
and that came from somebody who knows well, so.
Okay.
So I don't think there's a referral for that.
Nope, that's just a heads up.
Okay, so we've made our referrals. Then can I get a motion to adjourn until next Tuesday, February 13th?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, thank you. We are closed.